died on a battlefield that should have been the end, blades flashing, smoke rising, and betrayal burning through the veins of those he once trusted. But the resurrection gem defied death itself. When his eyes opened again, he was no soldier. He was Dale, heir to a noble house shrouded in secrets. He remembered everything, the pain, the treachery. Raised under the Black Duke's watch, Dale learned courtly manners by day and the language of death by night. Sabia taught him spellwork, but the Duke gave him power, necromancy, control, and the discipline of the abyss. While nobles whispered, Dale mastered ice and bone alike. He drew circles faster than his mentors, bound corpses with will alone, and silenced the halls with the proof of what genius born of vengeance could do. Beyond the tower waited the same world that killed him once. Now Dale trained alongside knights and prodigies, reshaping his destiny one spell at a time. He isn't a hero reborn for glory. He's a weapon remade by memory, forged in betrayal, sharpened by death, and waiting for the moment to strike back. When the tower lights burn and the nobles smile, only one truth remains. Power remembers the man who survived it.
The main guy in the story dedicated everything to working for the Empire, all because he wanted to make it back home someday. He realized too late that the people he trusted had turned on him, and in the end, they just got rid of him. Because of an artifact, he got a second chance at life. He started over as a baby, born into a noble family. He saw his chance and figured it was the perfect time to get back at them. With everything he learned and the strange new powers he picked up as a necromancer, he started to stand out in his family. They started calling him the genius, and that's when he decided it was time to head out on his own adventure. It all starts on Earth in 2045. Chaos is everywhere as soldiers and monsters clash across the city, explosions lighting up the sky and the ground shaking with every hit. It's the kind of scene that makes you stop and wonder how things got so out of control, with people fighting for their lives right in the middle of it all. A soldier gets hit hard in the middle of the fight when a monster strikes. The attack lands right on his chest, leaving a serious wound. He stumbles, clearly struggling, as the injury looks bad enough to be life-threatening. The last few soldiers stood frozen as a giant monster towered above them, its shadow stretching across the ground. Their hearts pounded while they tried to figure out if they should run or fight, knowing this thing was way out of their league. The soldier lies on the ground, staring up with wide eyes. He's frozen, unsure if he's about to die. Before he can do anything, the monster lunges at him. Han Seong showed up just in time, stepping in to rescue the warrior. He grabbed his sword and jumped right into the fight, not holding back at all. The huge monster goes all out, sending a bunch of attacks at Han Seong at the same time. Han Seong moves fast, dodging every attack the monster throws at him. He stays focused, slipping past each strike with quick steps, not letting the monster land a hit. He dodges just in time as something swings past him, barely missing. He aims his weapon and shoots, blasting off one of the monster's tentacles. Han Seong reached out to the soldier he'd just pulled from danger. Turns out, Han Seong wasn't just any guy, he was actually the top commander leading the last group defending Earth. Even though things were rough, he pushed the soldier to get back on his feet and keep going. The soldier stands up, lets everyone know he got the order, and heads back into the fight with his rifle ready. Monsters just kept pouring in, wave after wave, showing how humans had been fighting them for years without any break. The battlefield looked like it had been stuck in this fight forever, with no sign of things slowing down. Han Seong lets everyone know that just a handful of monsters are left up ahead. He finally stood face to face with his target and didn't waste a second, charging straight ahead. He steps up to face the final monster, but out of nowhere, a massive golden magic circle pops up right in front of him. He freezes, caught completely off guard by what just happened. Han Seong stared at the golden magic circle floating in front of him. His mind raced, trying to figure out what it was and why it suddenly showed up. He'd never seen anything like it before, and the whole thing just didn't make sense. One of the commander's soldiers looked around, totally lost, when the commander vanished out of nowhere. He just stood there trying to figure out what happened, not sure if he was seeing things or if the commander had really disappeared. Han Seong hears someone's voice telling him to answer the call. Out of nowhere, golden chains made of magic snap around him, locking him in place. An old magician showed up, looking pretty surprised that the summoning actually worked. He was clearly excited, almost like he couldn't believe he was finally seeing the hero from another world, someone he'd only heard stories about before. Han Seong looked down at the strange glowing shackles locked around his wrists. He had no idea where he was or how he ended up in this weird place. Everything felt off, and he couldn't stop thinking about what these things on his arms were supposed to do. The old magician greeted him, treating him like some kind of hero who had just shown up from another world. Out of nowhere, the magician turns to Han Seong and tells him that he needs to take down the Demon King and rescue their world. Han Se-young just rolls his eyes, clearly annoyed by what he's hearing. He thinks the whole conversation is ridiculous and can't believe anyone would waste his time with this. He starts firing off questions in frustration, trying to figure out who these people are, what they want, and where he even is. He keeps insisting he's in Korea and refuses to get caught up in what he sees as pointless drama. The magician suddenly interrupts, telling him to keep quiet. He activates the magical covenant bond called Gaius, and right away Han Seong's whole body body is hit with pain so strong that he can't help but scream. The magician explains that if he had just listened the first time, the magic wouldn't have ended up hurting him. Han Seong winced from the pain, his thoughts turning sour as he remembered how the magician didn't bother to ask him politely. Annoyance bubbled up inside him, making the situation even worse. The magician asks again for help taking down the Demon King. He looks down and sees a sword lying on the ground in front of him. Someone wants him to step up and save the Empire, and now it's like everything's on his shoulders. The sword makes it real. This isn't just talk anymore, it's his move now. The magician explained what Han Seong needed to do. If Han Seong followed these steps, there was a chance he could actually make it back to his own world. He wants to know if the guy is going to say yes to what they're asking. Han Seong nods, not really having much of a choice. Han Seong remembers the moment he got pulled into a whole different world, landing right in the middle of an empire he'd never heard of. Suddenly, he found himself thrown into a new fight, this time as the hero everyone was counting on. He remembers pushing himself through non-stop battles, taking on mission after mission without any breaks. He kept busy, cutting down enemies again and again, always doing what the Empire asked without a break. 3 years went by, then 5. Before anyone knew it, 10 years had passed. All that time he was still on the battlefield, doing everything he could for the Empire, locked in a non-stop fight against the Demon King's forces. He remembers giving up his whole youth just to take down the Demon King Baylor. Every night, he'd dream about going home, thinking that after everything, he finally deserved some peace. Once he wrapped up his mission, that familiar old magician showed up again, already handing him another job to do. Han Seong wasn't having it. This whole thing went against what they'd agreed on, and he made it clear he thought it was ridiculous. But the magician just shrugged him off and pointed out that saving the Empire was more than just taking down the Demon King. He told him that anyone standing against the War of Unification had to be dealt with, just so no new troublemakers would pop up. Now, Han Seong only had one more problem left to handle. The guy he had to take down was called Bottle, known for being pretty dangerous and part of the Teutonia Night Nation. The magician said if he could pull this off and get rid of Bottle, he'd finally get his freedom back. The magician looked at him, trying to get him to stick around and help out a bit more. Han Seong couldn't see any way out. He felt trapped, like someone who was always being told what to do. Deep down, he was frustrated with the people in charge, but he kept those thoughts to himself. The story jumps to Teutonia Night Nation, now in flames. Han Seong looks around at the chaos, tired and fed up, thinking about how long he'll be stuck in this life, hoping for a way out of all the mess. Right in the middle of the fight, Han Seong gets close enough and manages to land a stab with his sword. Han Seong stands face to face with Bottle, his opponent. Bottle looks at him, thinking Han Seong doesn't really get how tough things are. But Han Seong doesn't back down. Deep down, he knows he can't just walk away or give up, even if it's risky. He's got to go through with this no matter what. Han Seong steps up and apologizes to Sir Battle. Battle looks at him for a moment, then realizes who he is. Turns out, Battle remembers Han Seong, the hero who came from another world. As he hit the ground, the broken bottle seemed to send a message: don't bother feeling bad. The bottle knew it wouldn't last much longer either. Soon, it would be thrown out just like everything else. Han Seong thinks he's finally done and ready to head back, but then Count Brandenburg pops up behind him out of nowhere. Han Seong can't believe what's happening when the Count actually praises him for his work. But before he can react, the Count suddenly turns on him, driving a sword straight into his back. Han Seong freezes when he realizes who just stabbed him. It's Count Brandenburg. The recognition hits him hard, leaving him staring in disbelief. The Count looked at Han Seong and gave him some credit for fighting hard until the end. As the Empire's top knight and commander, Han Seong had done what was expected, stood his ground and didn't back down. But the Count couldn't help himself. He threw in a sarcastic comment about how it's not every day you see someone so loyal, almost comparing Han Seong to a hunting dog that just wouldn't give up. Han Seong finally gets it. The Count never planned to send him back to Earth. The whole promise was fake, just another trick. Anger burns in Han Seong's chest as he thinks about how he got played. The Count thinks about whether it really makes sense to keep a hunting dog if there's a chance it could turn against its owner. The idea sits heavy in his mind, making him question if loyalty is ever guaranteed. The Count says goodbye to Han Seong, and as he drops to the ground, he already knew deep down that they weren't going to just let him leave without trouble. In his head, he can't help but blame everyone around him. Han Seong lay there, his breaths growing weaker while the gem of resurrection started to glow in his chest. Even with everything slipping away, he couldn't get the sting of what happened out of his mind. The way the Empire tricked him burns deep, and he knew right then he was never letting it go. He promised himself that someday, the Empire would pay for what they did. He'd make sure of it. That night, Han Se-young's story quietly came to an end, while somewhere else, a new life was just beginning. The Duchess had just given birth to her son Dale, and everyone around her was celebrating. The Duchess stared down at her newborn, her eyes soft. She watched him closely, taking in every little detail of his tiny face. There was a warm look on her face, the kind you see when someone really cares. She knew this little guy was hers, and in that moment she wanted him to know it too. Han Seong, just born, lays there and glances up at the woman and the guy next to her. Something about the woman's face sticks in his mind. It's almost like he's seen her before, but he can't figure out where. Out of nowhere, it hits him. He knows who the guy is. Everyone knew Duke Jackson. In the Empire, nobody could top his skills as a necromancer or a master of dark magic. His name carried weight. Whenever folks heard it, they'd get a little tense, hoping they'd never have to face him. Han Seong figures out that he's in Necropolis now, the heart of the Empire when it comes to black magic. Looking around, it hits him that he's right inside the black magic tower. He remembered how the resurrection stone had actually worked. It only gave one shot at coming back to life. Back when he was forced to work as a hunting dog, he'd secretly hidden the stone, hoping it would help him escape that life someday. Now, whatever happened next was out of his hands. Somehow, he ended up as the oldest son in the Jackson family, one of the top noble families in the whole empire. Baby grins, clearly content with his new life. He doesn't know much yet, but something about his fancy surroundings already feels pretty good. He quietly promises himself that when he's older and knows necromancy, he'll take down the Imperials for good. Duke Jackson realizes the baby's quiet. Usually babies cry a lot, but this one just lies there totally silent. It's weird, and he can't help but stare, trying to figure out if something's wrong. The Duchess looked concerned and asked the nurse to take a closer look at him. The nurse checked and found it odd, pointing out that his breathing sounded perfectly normal. Dale, still just a baby, already knows he's not about to start crying. He can't help but wonder why these people think he's that little. The nurse calmly lets the Duchess know that his breathing is steady. She doesn't see a reason to be concerned right now. The Duke couldn't help but feel uneasy as he stared at the newborn, who stayed quiet instead of crying like most babies. The nurse tried to reassure him, but also mentioned that if they were seriously concerned about the baby not making a sound, there were things they could do. The nurse didn't waste any time. She gave the baby a quick slap, catching him totally off guard. Dale, still just a baby, kicked up a fuss every time he got slapped. His little noises came out all muffled, but anyone could tell he was mad about what was happening. The Duke looked over at his son and couldn't help but notice how stubborn the kid was. The Duchess just smiled, thinking he probably got that tough streak from his parents. The Duchess smiled as she reached out for the baby, wanting to hold him herself. Dale watched, frustrated, thinking to himself that these people didn't know what they were doing. In his mind, he knew their son was perfectly okay. The Duchess stops herself just before her hand reaches Dale's face. Dale stares up at her, his eyes wide, clearly not expecting that move. Inside, he's pretty mad about what almost happened. His mom pulls him in for a gentle hug. A warm hand rests gently on his cheek. Out of nowhere, Han Sion's mind jumps to something important he nearly forgot. Herman. He thinks back and realizes he can't even remember the last time he felt warm. There's this image of him sitting by himself, looking pretty lost, and it's clear that kind of comfort hasn't been around for a while. He notices how his young noble mother treats him with care. Her gentle touch and quiet affection make him feel safe, even though everything around him is new and a little overwhelming. Han Song had always kept his emotions locked up in his past life. He never showed tears or let anyone see what he was feeling. But now, everything was different. He couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears streamed down his face, and for the first time, he broke down, crying so hard he couldn't even try to stop himself. Years went by since Dale was born. One evening, the Duke and his wife hung out in their room, just talking. The Duke mentioned how fast the years seemed to fly, and his wife nodded, thinking the same thing. The Duchess wonders if Dale is still in the study, remembering how he's always had his nose in a book since he was little. The Duke just laughs it off, saying Dale probably got that from her. The Duke looked at his wife and said that Dale seemed pretty into magic lately. The Duchess gave him a look, reminding him about the promise he'd made to her before. The Duke thinks back to his promise about not teaching necromancy to Dale. Meanwhile, Dale is hanging out in the library, focused on his book, not knowing what's on the Duke's mind. The Duchess could see that he really did remember, and the Duke let her know everything was okay. The Duke tries to calm her down and shifts the topic to Dale's birthday gift, since that's happening tomorrow. While they're talking, someone knocks on the door. He glances over, curious and a bit thrown off, wondering who would show up this late. A maid suddenly rushed into the room, clearly looking for the Duke. He rushes over to let everyone know, clearly freaking out, that something's up with young Master Dale in the study. The Duke and Duchess hear the commotion and hurry straight to the library. Their hearts are pounding as they look around for Dale, hoping he's alright. They can't help but feel anxious as they search the room, worried about what they might find. Dale was on his knees in the middle of the room, blue mana swirling all around him like some kind of force field. His parents walked in and spotted him right away. The sight froze them for a second, eyes wide as they realized what was happening. The Duchess hurried over and wrapped Dale in a tight hug. She checked him over with concern, wanting to know if he was okay and what had gone down. Dale let her know he was alright, trying to put her at ease. The Duke stands there taking a moment as he notices something different. In the air there's mana, and he can actually sense it. It hits him that his son Dale, who only just turned 8, is already able to pull this off. Impressed, he looks over to his son, ready to get his attention. The Duke looked at his son with a serious expression and wanted to know if Dale was the one who let the mana out of his body. Dale could feel his heart racing as he realized he'd messed up. He knew the adults would think something was off. Dale realizes he just let out his mana way faster than he expected. Now he's a bit on edge, hoping no one around starts thinking there's something off about him. He knows he needs to come up with a response fast, or people might start asking questions he doesn't want to answer. The Duke smiled at Dale and gave him a gentle pat on the head, showing everyone he was proud of him. The Duke mentions that he won't be able to teach Dale necromancy. That hits Dale hard. He hadn't expected this. Thoughts rush through his mind as he tries to process what this means. If his father can't teach him, what will happen to his plans for revenge? He's left unsure, his mind racing with questions he doesn't have answers to. The Duchess told Dale to head back to his room. She let him know that the servants would take care of the mess, so he didn't need to worry about it. Dale stepped out of the room, and as he did, the Duke turned to Elena. He looked pretty pleased with himself, smiling as he told her he'd just come up with a good gift idea for Dale. Later that day, at Dale's birthday party, the place was packed with nobles from all over the Black Dukes' region. Everyone seemed to notice how big the event was, with pretty much every important family showing up to celebrate. Everyone at the party kept glancing around, waiting for the young lord to finally show up. Up on the second floor of the banquet hall, Dale hangs out by himself. He's not really into all the noise coming from downstairs, and the party's dragging on longer than he expected. He looks around at everyone who showed up for his birthday and can't help but wonder why they all went through so much effort just for him. It honestly feels kind of tiring seeing all these people gathered like this. He thinks the weird feeling he has is because he got used to getting treated badly back when he was the hero. Now, having everyone treat him like he's some important young master just feels off and kind of uncomfortable for him. He isn't really paying attention to the party around him. Instead, his mind keeps going back to the desk he broke a few days earlier. That's all he can think about no matter how loud or busy things get. And he thinks back to how his mana totally freaked out just because he started remembering his old life as the hero. The whole thing makes him wonder who even dropped off that hero biography for him in the first place. Still, looking at his current body and all the talent it's got, he feels like it would be a waste not to try out necromancy. He tries to figure out how to get his dad on board, remembering something about a gift his dad mentioned earlier. For a second, he considers asking if he could learn necromancy as his gift, but then he looks at his parents and knows right away that there's no way they'd ever go for it. He sat there, completely drained, when his mother, Duchess Elena, walked in. She looked at him and made it clear that he'd been waiting around for too long. Dale walked into the room and saw his mom waiting for him. She smiled and reminded him that today was his 8th birthday. He spots someone standing behind his mom and wonders who it could be. His mom gives him a little nudge, letting him know it's okay to go over and say hi. His mom brings in the guest. She's an elf named Miss Sabia, one of the big names from the Blue Magic Tower. People know her for being smart and really good with water magic. Dale's mom let him know that Miss Sabia would be his new teacher. Dale didn't see that coming. As Miss Sabia stepped up, he just stared, not sure what to think. She seemed pretty eager about it though and looked right at him, ready to start. Dale's mom tells him happy birthday one more time. He takes a second to figure out what's going on. Turns out, they've picked out a teacher for him, a real one from the Magic Tower. He realizes they want him to study water magic, which is mostly about defense and messing with attacks. That pretty much tells him his mom really wants to steer him clear of dark magic. Later on, Miss Sabia pulls Dale aside and lets him know she wants to talk to him privately. Dale nods and goes with her, curious about what she has to say. Sabia let him know her job was just to teach him water magic, nothing else. She looks at him, trying to figure out if he's let down, since it seemed like he was hoping to learn a different kind of magic. Dale didn't expect Sabia to notice so much about him. She picked up on things he hadn't said out loud, which threw him off a bit. Sabia just shrugged it off, like it was totally normal for someone in his position to be curious about necromancy and the kind of magic his dad used. Everyone in the Empire already knows about the Black Duke's marriage situation. It's practically common knowledge at this point. Sabia shares the whole story with him. Back when the Duke was trying to win over Lady Elena, she was scared because of all the rumors about him. To make her feel better, the Duke made a promise that he wouldn't let his kids get involved in his line of work. Sabia thinks back to the wedding day. The elders from the Black Magic Tower showed up, but instead of their usual black robes, they wore pure white. It was weird seeing them dressed like that, almost like they were trying to fit in with everyone else for once. She lets him know that their marriage started because of that vow, so learning dark magic isn't really possible right now. Still, she reassures him that she'll figure out how to get Lady Elena on board sometime down the line. For now, she wants him to stick to what she's showing him. Dale shoots back with a question, not backing down. He points out that, as an elf, she's all about respecting nature and its rules. So, he wants to know how she can be okay with black magic and necromancy, especially stuff like bringing the dead back. It just doesn't line up with what elves usually stand for. Sabia gave a small smile, clearly finding his question worth thinking about. Instead of answering right away, she tossed another question back at him, wanting to know what he thought about priests using holy power to bring people back to life. She wondered if that counted as following the will of nature. Dale hadn't expected her to answer like that and was caught off guard. Sabia looks at necromancy and resurrection and can't really tell the difference between them. Dale starts to notice how unlike other elves she is. Most of them are pretty set in their ways, but Sabia seems open-minded. He starts thinking she could actually make a solid teacher. Sabia let him know it was time to start the lesson. She brought up how she'd heard he managed to put together some small pieces of a mana circle not too long ago. For today, she said their main goal would be to help him grow those pieces into a complete, solid circle for the first time. Dale likes the idea. Every magic book he's read talks about needing the first circle, so this feels like the perfect chance for him to actually try making one. Sabia tells him to put his hand over his chest and focus. He tries to focus, while Sabia lets him know that this place isn't like Earth here. Mana is everywhere. Most people didn't have a chance at something like that unless they were some kind of legendary creature, like a dragon. Handling raw, unprocessed mana just doesn't work. To handle all that wild mana, guys need something in their bodies to manage it, and that's where the mana circle in the heart comes in. Wraps up the first lesson by laying out what he needs to do. He has to find the broken mana circle pieces that are spread out near his heart, put them together, and then keep the finished circle spinning smoothly around his heart. Dale listens to his teacher Sabia and finally gets what she's saying. He looks at the circle and realizes it's actually a drawing of the monoflow path on a heart. Sabia tells him to take it easy at first and just focus on moving the mana around his heart. Sabia lets Dale know that this process normally takes about a month and tells him to take it slow. But before she can finish, Dale cuts her off, not wanting to wait that long. Dale, not really sure of himself, lets Sabia know he thinks he pulled it off. Sabia just stares at him, wide-eyed, clearly surprised. Sabia stares, honestly impressed, trying to figure out if a kid who just started training could really pull off a full circle that fast. It doesn't seem possible, but what he's seeing makes him rethink what he knows. He figures out that something this crazy could only happen if the kid has some unreal, almost legendary talent. Sabia watches as Dale shapes his hands into a circle, waiting to see what he'll do next. Dale focuses, trying to push his magic out to the shape he's made, not really sure what's supposed to happen, but giving it a shot anyway. Dale nods his head, going along with the plan. Meanwhile, Sabia can't help but think that most kids would have a tough time just getting Mana to move to the circle at all. Dale, now carrying Hansham's memories, knew he wasn't strong enough yet to take on the Empire or stand up to Duke Jackson. He thought back to his last life, when he could use some serious combat magic because of the seals etched into his skin. But things weren't the same this time around. He notices right away that his new body, which got its power from the Black Magic Tower's master, just takes in mana without him having to try. That gets him thinking. Maybe he isn't stuck with just water magic anymore. Maybe he can figure out different kinds too. Dale focuses hard, guiding the energy he just pulled into his body down to his fingertips. He's trying to make something happen, putting all his effort into it. He pictures the most dangerous shard he can think of, one strong enough to bring down the whole empire. Focusing hard, he actually manages to make it real. Sabia's eyes go wide when she realizes he actually managed to pull it off. The icebolt he just made looks almost perfect, way better than what most could do. She thinks to herself how that kind of magic usually falls apart when people try to concentrate it and let it loose, but this time it held together. Sabia figures that since Dale's putting so much effort into getting the spell just right, it probably won't be that strong. Then Dale goes ahead and casts the spell. The icebolt smacks right into the tree and blows up with a crazy amount of force, sending chunks of ice and bark flying everywhere. The tree is totally destroyed and Sabia just stands there frozen. He can't believe what he's seeing. Sabia notices that the ice is so sharp and solid, it actually went right through a tree. He looks at it and knows right away. There's no way any 8-year-old could pull something like this off, not with that kind of skill. Dale turns around, showing a totally harmless smile. Sabia stares at him, caught off guard by how young he looks, and starts to question what's really going on with this kid. Sabia watched the whole thing, pretty stunned. She expected him to just move the mana around, nothing too wild. But instead, he actually let out some real magic and mixed it with ice, which was way more than she thought he could do. Even though it was just a simple spell, he pulled it off like a pro, making it even stronger by pulling in the chill from around him. Dale looks around, unsure if he messed up. He can't tell if everyone's annoyed or if he just missed something obvious. He starts to wonder if he's done something wrong. Sabia looks at the magic formula, realizing it's way too advanced for any regular kid to pull off by accident. There's no way a child just came up with something like that without knowing what they were doing. She suddenly notices he used 3 different moves: rotation, acceleration, and compression. Altogether, people call that the golden ratio in military magic. She realizes that he managed to pull off a flawless attack spell without even thinking about it, and it really catches her off guard. Dale tries calling her again, but she just brushes it off, saying it's nothing. Sabia starts to realize what's really going on. She thinks she finally gets why the Duke, the Black Archmage, looked so full of regret before. Later on, Sabia heads over to talk to the Duke. When she tells him she can't teach Dale, the Duke doesn't really get it at first, and seems pretty caught off guard. The Duke pointed out that since the kid had managed to reach the first circle so quickly, it actually made even more sense to start teaching him now. Sabia explained that right after Dale finished the first circle, he pulled off a flawless slaughter spell. The Duke couldn't believe what he was hearing. Sabia couldn't wrap his head around the idea that an 8-year-old kid managed to pull off a spell with a military formula as precise as the golden ratio. It just didn't seem possible for someone that young to figure out something so advanced. She finishes her report and lets the Duke know what she's found out. Turns out, young Master Dale is actually good at killing. The Duke paused for a moment, clearly thinking things over. He wanted to know if Miss Sabia was saying she couldn't teach Dale. It mattered to him, especially since she was an elder from the Blue Tower, a place known for standing against killing. Sabia shakes her head, not agreeing with what's being said. Because of everything going on, she wants to step in and help out herself, making sure he doesn't get lost along the way. The Duke thought about it for a second. If that was how things stood, he figured there really wasn't any point in saying no. Sabia keeps talking, letting everyone know that Dale already has his sights set on a type of magic to learn. It's the Duke's dark magic. Dale didn't expect anyone to realize what he wanted, and it clearly catches him off guard. Sabia kept going, sharing that she'd heard all about the Black Mage's love story and how he'd made a promise to Lady Elena. She said she respected him for that. She stands her ground, reminding him that just because he made that promise, it doesn't mean he gets to control what happens in his kid's life, especially since the young lord's got some serious skills. While Dale hung out at the top of the stairs, he tried to listen in on what was going on downstairs. He stayed quiet, hoping to catch something interesting, but none of it made sense to him. The conversation just sounded like random noise, and he was left kind of frustrated, wishing he could figure out what they were talking about. He looks annoyed, pretty sure those guys are talking about him. He couldn't help but notice how strong his first spell turned out to be. It even caught Lady Sabia off guard, and she usually had everything under control. He let out a sigh and told himself he had to start paying more attention to how he used his power from now on. Dale's thoughts got cut off when someone called out for him. He pushed himself up from the floor, a small smile spreading across his face. A guy in full armor showed up. Dale recognized him right away and got excited. It was his Uncle Helmet. Dale wanted to know what brought his uncle here. He really wants to know where the guy's been all this time. Helmet just laughed it off, saying he was only doing his job to keep the duchy safe. He starts talking about how he was cleaning up some scary monsters, then picks Dale up and carries him. Dale cracks a smile as it clicks for him. His uncle's been off tackling a dungeon. Dale remembers how, in this world, anytime dungeons show up or monsters start pouring out, it always causes a huge stir in every province. Stuff like this has been a big deal for people ever since the days when the Demon King was around. Monster attacks always left settlements pretty messed up. Buildings got wrecked, streets were torn up, and you could see the aftermath everywhere. People had to deal with cleaning up, fixing homes, and trying to get things back to normal, but it was never easy. The damage wasn't something you could just ignore. It stuck around, making life harder for everyone living there. The main job for the province's knights is to head out and clear the dungeons that are still left in the old Demon King's territory. They spend most of their days tracking down these places, fighting off the monsters inside, and making sure the area stays safe for everyone else. Sometimes, when monsters spill out from a dungeon, hunters are called in to clean things up. But right now, Dale points out that the trouble in the Duchy of Saxon is on a whole different level. It's way worse than usual. The wild part is, Dale says it's all because of Han Seong and what he did in his past life. After beating the Demon King in his last life, Dale had to deal with what came next. The Duke of Saxon got a new job. He was told to clear out the monsters from the Demon King's old territory. That land got handed over to him as a reward, and it was his job to make it safe and turn it into part of the Empire. He just calls it what it is, making other people handle the stuff nobody wants to do. Back in the present, Dale looked at Uncle Helmet, hoping he'd stay safe. Uncle Helmet could tell Dale actually cared about him, and it meant a lot. Just then, the Duke stepped into the room. Dale looked over and called for his dad. Helmet walked up to the Duke, who gave him a quick smile and nodded, showing he appreciated all the effort Helmet had put into the campaign. Duchess Elena showed up, curious about the crowd. Dale looked over, trying to figure out what his mom was up to. Elena spotted Dale and hurried over, her eyes lighting up when she mentioned hearing about him making it to the first circle. She seemed genuinely impressed, almost couldn't believe it, and started fussing over him like he just unlocked a new level in a game. Dale looked a bit embarrassed with all the attention, but deep down, he couldn't help feeling a little proud of himself. The Duke gives Dale a proud smile and lets him know he did well. He makes it clear that if Dale needs anything, he shouldn't hesitate to go straight to his dad. Dale pauses, not sure if bringing up necromancy would make him look sneaky. He takes a second to figure out what kind of wish a regular kid would make instead. Dale suddenly brings up that he wants a little sister. The Duke and Duchess freeze, caught off guard, and both turn a bit red in the face. The Duke, clearly unsure and awkward, says he'll give it a shot. Dale gets excited and encourages them, all smiles, while his parents try to process what just happened. Captain Helmet is sprawled out on the ground outside the tower, cracking up. One of the knights nearby looks a little uncomfortable and tries to get him to chill out, probably because Dale just made a pretty weird request. Helmet, though, just keeps on laughing, not even trying to hide how much he's enjoying the moment. Dale stretched out on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Keeping up the act of being all innocent and pure, even though he was way older inside, just wore him out. He started to wonder if all this tiredness was because of the magic he'd been using lately. Out of nowhere, a sharp pain hits him hard. Dale drifts into a nightmare. Memories from when he was Han Seong coming back to haunt him. In the dream, Brandenburg appears, almost like he's picking up a conversation that never really ended. The sight of Brandenburg brings back all those old memories Dale thought he'd left behind. Brandenburg didn't hold back, teasing him for switching sides so fast and acting like he'd gone soft without much effort. He keeps taunting him, bringing up his new life with decent parents and a place to stay. He hints that with a full stomach and a warm bed, the guy probably doesn't even think about getting payback anymore. His lips curled into a sly grin, letting Han Seong know that the Empire was still on his trail. He lets him know that they aren't going to stop looking for him. They're serious about tracking him down, making sure he's gone for good, and leaving no sign that he was ever around. Dale jerked awake, breathing hard. All around him, bursts of mana lit up the place, wild and out of control. He grabs his chest, pain shooting through him like his heart might burst any second. Dale sees what's happening, and it finally clicks. This is that mana overflow thing people always talked about, but he never thought he'd see it for real. He can't help but blame the Imperials for causing all this mess. He figured they'd still bother him no matter what. Wanting to clear his head, he stepped outside for some fresh air, hoping it might help him feel a bit better. Things only start getting messier. Teacher Sabia showed up out of nowhere and noticed right away that Dale looked like he was hurting. Dale didn't expect anyone to notice, so he was caught off guard. Sabia could tell he was dealing with mana overflow, something that made sense for someone as gifted as this kid. Still, there was something off about him, something that put her on edge. Sabia gently puts her hand on Dale, trying to settle the wild magic inside him. She knows if anger or bitterness ever takes over his powers, things could get out of control before anyone can stop it. She manages to get the wild mana under control. Dale sees that the swirling mana around him is gone. When Sabia calls out to him, he snaps back to the moment and answers her. Sabia told him that magic works kind of like a reflection of what's inside you. That's why, even if two people use the same spell, it doesn't always turn out the same way. It all depends on what's going on in your heart. She explained to him that his magic was naturally good at ending life, which made it pretty dangerous. While she was saying this, she gave him a book. Sabia thinks it's actually pretty lucky that she's the one who gets to teach him. Dale spots the book and freezes. It hits him. This isn't just any old book. It's all about necromancy. His mind races, trying to process what he's actually holding. He never thought he'd come across something like this in real life. Sabia smiled at him, thinking that maybe fate really had a hand in bringing them together. She wanted him to know she remembered his birthday and hoped it would be a good one. Dale gets pretty emotional and ends up hugging his teacher. His teacher looks a bit caught off guard at first, but then just smiles and pats Dale on the head, messing with him like he's still a little kid who needs looking after. A few days later, Dale and Sabia headed out to the open fields just beyond the north gate. As they walked, Dale thought about the rabbit from before and wanted to know what happened to it. Sabia spots the rabbit and reminds Dale of those old hunting trips with his dad. Dale focuses, getting himself ready to go. Dale keeps his eyes on the rabbit, not letting anything distract him. He steps up and hits it with a freezing ice spell that could really do some damage. Sabia watches him closely. Even after what just happened, his hands stay steady, not even a hint of a shake. He calls his name, thinking about how, even if two people use the same magic, it always looks a bit different depending on who's using it. Teacher Sabia kept going with her lesson, bringing up the whole thing with the rabbit. She turned to Dale and wanted to know if he understood why his hands stayed steady when he killed it. Dale didn't really have an answer, just looked a bit lost. So, Sabia explained that magic works sort of like a mirror, showing what's going on inside your head. Magic in this world works in a pretty unique way. Whatever is deep inside someone's heart, magic brings it out and turns it into reality using these special particles called monoparticles. That's why, whenever someone uses magic, you can pretty much guess what's on their mind. Dale just sits there, quiet. He doesn't say anything, just taking it all in. Sabia goes on, saying that spell names like Firewall are really just there to help people picture what the magic does. She points out that, in every magic tower, things work pretty much the same way. The names just help everyone understand what to expect from the spells. The Red Tower believes that keeping things in line means having strong leaders and clear rules. On the other hand, the Blue Tower thinks order comes from everyone working together and getting along. She notices how every tower has its own way of thinking, and you can actually see it in the type of magic they use. She explains that there are more towers out there, not just the red and blue ones. There's black, white, and green towers too, and each one has its own way of doing things. She stops all of a sudden and lets Dale know that he's not ready for this lesson yet. Dale just stands there, not really sure what's going on. Sabia started showing him how necromancy works, starting with the basics. She used the rabbit he had killed earlier, showing him how to bring it back as a zombie. She tells him that this kind of magic works by using mana to bring dead bodies back to life, letting the caster control them. Dale gets to work, remembering what he learned. He carefully connects these magical threads to the corpse, starting with the head, then moving to the spine, and finally the knees. Dale managed to keep the magical energy steady, just like he'd practiced. His teacher noticed and gave him a nod of approval, making Dale feel like he was finally getting the hang of it. She tells Dale to go for the next spell, and he nods, getting ready. Right in front of him, the zombie rabbit with its weird purple glow just stands there, staring. Dale puts all his concentration into using the frozen armor spell. He manages to trap the zombie rabbit in a layer of ice, locking it in place. Sabia looks over the armor he just finished making and thinks it actually turned out pretty well. She grinned at him, signaling that it was time to see how well the shield could hold up. Getting ready, she started to gather her magic and called up an ice spell, focusing on making it strong enough to give the shield a real challenge. Sabia aims at the armored rabbit and sends a sharp blast of ice right at it. The armor takes the hit and holds up just long enough before it cracks apart. Dale can't help but feel proud he actually managed to stop his teacher's attack. Sabia gave Dale another compliment and could tell he looked like he had something on his mind. She asked if he wanted anything, and Dale quickly nodded, clearly excited to answer. Dale went up to his teacher, hoping he could learn water magic too, not just necromancy. He figured mastering both would make him stronger, so he wanted some help with it. Sabia smiles at Dale, looking pretty calm, but then she turns him down without hesitating. Dale wasn't expecting that at all, and the answer really catches him off guard. She lets him know that what he pulled off today is just the easy stuff when it comes to water magic. She lets him know that water magic isn't as simple as it looks. The more someone tries to learn, the harder it gets. It takes real focus and a deeper way of thinking to handle it, just like with any other magic. For most beginners, just picking up a single spell is already tough. When it came to the whole thing about being a dual magician and handling two types of magic at the same time, it sounded wild. Most people would probably think it's nearly impossible or just something you see in games or movies. The idea alone could make anyone pause, wondering if it was even worth trying or just asking for trouble. At his age, this kind of goal felt nearly impossible, and to her, it just looked like he was aiming way too high. Dale hears the word ambition, and it hits him. He starts thinking about how, even after everything he's shown her, she still doesn't think he's enough. It stings a bit, and he can't help but wonder what more he needs to prove. He's let down, thinking back to when she said they'd figure things out as a team. Sabia notices what's going on with him and decides to wrap up the lesson early. That night, Dale sits alone in the study, focused and stubborn. He wants to show everyone, especially himself, that he can do this on his own. He throws himself into studying alone, sitting in the middle of swirling shadows that hint at dark magic. Even without anyone to guide him, he's set on figuring out magic by himself. The next morning, his teacher Sabia notices how tired he looks and calls out to him. Sabia checked on Dale, wondering if he was tired or maybe didn't get enough sleep. Dale admitted he had stayed up a bit later than usual because he was getting something ready. Sabia lets Dale know he should take it easy, and Dale nods, understanding she's right. Later, out on the snowy plains, Dale gets ready to show what he's been working on. He combines a dark magic circle with his ice powers, and then covers the zombie rabbit with a new kind of frozen armor. This armor isn't smooth either. It's got spikes all over it, making the rabbit look even more intense. Sabia watches him closely, noticing how he's nailed every move without messing up. It's clear he's got this down, and Sabia can't help but recognize just how much skill he's showing right now. Out of nowhere, the ice armor cracks and blasts apart, sending sharp pieces flying everywhere. Sabia freezes for a second, caught off guard, and tries to figure out if this was some kind of frost explosion. But things kept getting weirder, because the zombie rabbit started pulling in some kind of dark energy. The rabbit suddenly sets off an explosion, blasting out from a lifeless body and catching everyone off guard. The flying ice shards shot forward, merging with a blast of dark energy as they sped straight for Sabia. Sabia stands in the middle of a sudden storm, ice shards falling all around her. Dark energy swirls through the air, making everything feel tense and dangerous. She tries to keep her cool, but the freezing cold and that strange power pressing in get her heart racing. Once the attack died down, Dale faced his teacher. She had managed to keep herself safe behind a magic shield. Dale told her how he managed to pull it off. He used both corpse explosion and frost explosion together. Basically, he mixed water magic with dark magic to make a new kind of attack. He stood there with a confident grin, showing off his skills. In one hand, he held a ball of ice magic, and in the other, a ball of dark magic. He wanted to know if this was enough to prove he could handle both types of magic at once. Sabia just stands there, frozen, not saying a word. All around him, everything's wrecked. He can't really move, just taking it all in, trying to wrap his head around what just happened. She realizes she's never seen anyone fight like this. She studies what just happened, and notices that when the frozen armor blew up, it combined with the corpse explosion, making the blast hit a much bigger area than she expected. She notices sharp ice shards scattered all over the place, sticking out just like blades. Rabbit bones are wedged between them, making everything look kind of dangerous and messy. She thinks this move was made just for taking people out, like it came from someone who spent their whole life fighting. Sabia can't help but worry about what's going on in this kid's mind. Dale spots that she's gone quiet, but before he can think about it too much, he whips around and calls out to Sir Helmet. The knight helmet rode up on his horse, giving a quick wave to the young lord and Miss Sabia as he got closer. Dale looked curious and wanted to know if Knight Helmet had just come back from cleaning out another dungeon. Helmet explains that this time, they were just dealing with a small pack of monsters. He points out that the Black Cavalry ran into some trouble. Everybody knew about the Black Cavalry. These guys rolled out with Duke Saxon, always leading the charge and crushing anyone in their way. Their lances weren't just weapons, they gave off this crazy energy that made everyone think twice before getting close. On the battlefield, nobody wanted to face them. The guy in charge is the Knight Commander, Sir Helmet. Turns out, he's actually one of the Seven Swords, the legendary group everyone on the continent knows about. Dale brings up the promise Helmet made about teaching him swordsmanship. He doesn't let it slide, making sure Helmet knows he hasn't forgotten. Dale really believes Helmet's the best guy to learn from, so he's not shy about reminding him. Helmet laughs and tells Dale he can drop by whenever he wants. Dale nods and thinks to himself that he'll be back before long. Helmet nodded and let the young lord know it was pretty cold out. He gestured for him to head back inside, hoping he'd get back safely. Once the lesson wraps up, Teacher Sabia brings up the idea of heading back to the tower. Dale's cool with it, so they both get ready to go. Later that night, the Duchess, Elena, and the Duke called Miss Sabia in to ask her some questions. Sabia lets everyone know straight up that young Lord Dale already knows how to use both necromancy and water magic at the first level. The Duke's face turns sour, clearly not happy with how things are going. He gives her a look, trying to jog her memory about how they'd already asked her to step in and teach him. It was just water magic, and Sabia nodded to let everyone know. Sabia stood her ground, explaining herself. As a teacher, she just wanted to help the kid learn what he was actually interested in. Dale didn't only care about water magic, he wanted to know a lot more than that, and Sabia was just trying to support him. Duchess Elena stepped in, realizing that Dale really wanted this. She gave Sabia the go-ahead to keep teaching him water magic. Sabia nodded, and the Duke and Duchess looked relieved, thankful for her help. Before heading out, Sabia takes a moment to apologize to Duchess Elena. She knows that because of her, Elena ended up breaking her promise to the Duke about keeping necromancy away from Dale. After Sabia walked out, the Duchess let out a quiet sigh. She watched her son for a moment, thinking about how different he was from other kids his age. Most 8-year-olds were still figuring things out, but her son already had 2 kinds of magic. Sometimes, she gets scared, but deep down she knows that's just part of who he is. While she's lost in thought, the Duke says her name. The Duke catches everyone off guard when he suddenly says he's going to teach Dale necromancy himself. He admits he's got more than one reason for what he's doing. As a lord, he wants his heir to be strong enough to handle all the responsibilities that come with the title. As a magician, he's interested in taking on this skilled disciple, hoping to pass down what he knows. As a dad, he hopes his son will carry on what he started. The Duke felt pretty guilty about breaking his word to his wife. He tried to make it right, hoping she wouldn't be too upset. Eleanor listened and let him know she got where he was coming from. Out in the world, people still weren't cool with necromancy. Whenever someone mentioned it, everyone acted like it was some creepy forbidden magic. She tells him that's the reason she tried to stop it before, but now she wants something different. She asks him to help Dale become a necromancer, one who's powerful enough to defeat those people without any trouble. The Duke felt something shift inside him. He looked at her, searching her face, trying to see if she really got what he meant. She didn't say anything, just went in for a hug, holding him tight. That was all the answer he needed. He nodded, finally letting himself believe she understood. Right then he made a promise to himself. No matter what it took, he was going to put everything on the line to help their son become the best he could be. Later on, the Duke started Dale's first lesson. He couldn't hide how let down he was by Dale. You could just tell the Duke expected a lot more, and Dale could feel that pressure right away. The Duke wasn't happy with his son. He looked at him, clearly annoyed, and questioned if his son had been handling the dead this whole time without even knowing what he was dealing with. Dale sits there, annoyed with Sabia. All this time, his teacher just covered the easy stuff, nothing special. So now, as he faces the situation, Dale wonders what anyone expected from him. Dale told how, right after he showed his dad the simple magic tricks he'd picked up, his dad didn't waste any time. He took Dale straight down to the castle's basement where the Black Duke's magic workshop was hidden away. The Duke gave Dale a serious look, making it clear that while Dale was training with him, he had to drop those old basic magic tricks. The Duke wanted Dale to leave that stuff behind and focus on learning things the right way. Dale could tell the Duke wasn't messing around. This was going to be different from anything he'd tried before. The Duke stood up and told everyone that the first lesson was about to start. He wanted them to memorize all the bones and muscles in every living creature. The room went quiet and some guys looked around, trying to figure out if he was serious. It sounded like a huge task, but nobody wanted to be the first to complain. Everyone grabbed their stuff, ready to dive into something that sounded way tougher than they expected. Dale sits in his room, barely able to see over the towers of books stacked around him. Every week his dad checks in, and Dale just gives a quick nod or a short reply before going back to whatever he was doing. Dale flips through the books and quickly notices they're not your average reads. They're packed with stuff only doctors would know back in his old world. He spends days holed up, committing every page to memory. After what feels like forever, his dad lets him know he's finally got the basics down. Dale can't help but feel excited. He's finally going to learn some real magic, the kind that actually does something useful. The Duke lets him know that this is where things are about to get serious. Dale stopped in front of the goblin's body, staring down with wide eyes. He hadn't expected to see something like this up close, and it caught him off guard. His dad, the Duke, noticed right away and just gave a small, knowing smile, like he'd seen this reaction before. The Duke points out that if a magician doesn't know what they're doing, all they can do is turn a swordmaster's body into a basic zombie. But if the magician's got real talent, even the body of a regular foot soldier could become a death knight. The Duke glanced down at the goblin's body in front of him, making it clear there was now an undead soldier on their side. He turned his attention to Dale, almost daring him to figure out how to make the creature move. The challenge was out there. What would Dale do next? Dale braces himself and grabs the goblin's body, getting ready to drag it out of the way. The thing is heavier than it looks, and the smell isn't helping at all. He tries to ignore it and focus, doing his best not to gag as he starts pulling the goblin across the ground. He quickly notices this is way tougher than working on the rabbit. The goblin stands upright like a person, has a bunch of bones, and needs way more careful mana thread work to get it right. He has a hard time making the corpse do what he wants. It barely moves, dragging along super slow and awkward, almost like it's stuck in slow motion. Every step looks stiff and unnatural, making it obvious he's not used to this at all. He feels like he's trying to work some kind of tricky machine, where every move is awkward and nothing really does what he wants. Dale starts to second-guess himself after using rigor mortis magic on the corpse. The spell definitely made the body tougher, but now the joints and muscles are so stiff that it barely moves at all. He can't help but think he might have messed up, realizing that making the corpse stronger also made it kind of useless for anything else. He just stands there, stuck, unsure of what his next move should be. The Duke stepped in and let Dale know that speeding up rigor mortis to make the corpse stronger was actually a smart move. But the problem is, it makes it way too hard to move around. The Duke turned to his son, telling him to pay attention. Then, with a deep, serious look, the Duke stepped forward. Dark energy started swirling around him, almost like a shadow coming to life. He reached out, and that strange power let him take over the lifeless body in front of them. Dale stands there, eyes wide as he watches his dad bring a dead body back to life like it's nothing. He can hardly believe what he's seeing. His mind races trying to figure out how his dad can do something so unreal. Dale's heart pounds, and for a moment he just stares, frozen, as his dad works his strange magic right in front of him. The Duke starts talking about how the ribcage works. He points out that it's basically there to protect all the important stuff inside, like the heart and lungs. He keeps things pretty straightforward, making it clear that the ribcage is tough for a reason. It keeps everything safe. The organ's main job is to keep all the important stuff inside the body safe. He wonders about it, since people who've already died don't really need to keep their organs safe anymore. Nobody really knew why they left things the way they were. The Duke didn't waste any time, though. He reached for the body and changed it right away. Suddenly, the ribcage twisted and turned into sharp blades, and claws started sticking out. It was pretty wild to see how quickly everything could change. The Duke took a moment to talk to his son, wanting him to really get what was in front of him. He pointed out that before doing anything else, the kid needed to figure out how the creature was put together. Once he got that down, the next step was to change it up to fit whatever he needed. The Duke made sure his son knew this wasn't just about looking, but about really understanding and then making it work for him. Dale realizes this must be where dark magic starts. He looks over at his dad, feeling pretty impressed. Dale wondered about the way things worked at the Black Tower, so he turned to his dad for answers. He was curious about what kind of rules and ideas the people there believed in, hoping his father could explain it all. The Duke doesn't waste time. He just says it straight, not bothering with any extra words. The Duke talked about how people usually find the real answers when someone dies. That's why he said it's important for everyone to figure out what's really going on. He knew life wasn't easy, but he kept pushing forward, hoping he'd finally figure out what was real. When the Duke rests his hand on Dale's shoulder, something old and rough comes rushing back to him. It's a memory from when he was Han Sion, one of those moments you never really shake off. The touch brings it all up, stuff he'd rather forget, but it's right there again, way too clear. A guy was down on his knees in front of him, surrounded by flames, desperate for the hero to let him live. Han Sion tunes out the desperate cries around him. His grip tightens on the sword, still wet with blood, as he lifts it high, ready to finish the job. Just thinking back to that moment gives Dale chills. The Duke spots how pale he looks and checks to see if he's alright. Dale snaps out of it and shakes his head fast, trying to clear his mind. Dale let his dad know he was okay. As time went on, his magic got stronger every day. Pretty soon, people all over the Empire started talking about how Duke Saxon was teaching Dale black magic. Everyone in the noble circles was buzzing when word got out that the Duke broke his marriage promise. It was all over their conversations and social feeds, and people couldn't stop talking about how he went back on his word. Everyone started looking at Dale, and pretty much all eyes were on him now. Even the big shots from the Empire were paying close attention, watching his every move. The nobles from the Empire started keeping a close eye on him, barely letting him out of their sight. A few weeks passed, and he found himself back at the duchy's training ground. Dale spent time practicing sword moves with the wooden sword, going up against Uncle Helmet. He took the training seriously, focusing hard and putting in real effort as he tried to keep up with his uncle's skills. The two of them went at it, trading heavy punches back and forth. Dale steps in fast and smacks the sword right out of Helmet's hand. Helmet stood there, frozen, his sword slipping from his hand and clattering to the ground. Helmet couldn't help but laugh, honestly impressed by what the young lord just did. He gave the guy some credit, it was a solid move. Dale, on the other hand, looked like he wasn't having any of it. He stood his ground, acting like there's no way a real knight would just let go of his sword that easily. Dale looks at Helmet, thinking he's not giving it his all. He gets this nagging thought that Helmet might be holding back, not really fighting seriously. Dale can't shake off the feeling that Helmet isn't showing his true strength, and it kinda bugs him. Helmet refuses to admit any wrongdoing. He stands by his actions, saying he used real sword skills. He points out that for most people, just one hit would have been enough to take them down for good. Helmet watched Dale handle the sword and couldn't help but notice just how good he was. For a second, Helmet almost forgot Dale was supposed to be a magician, not a swordsman. It seemed like a shame to Helmet that someone with talent like that wasn't swinging swords all the time. He points out that magicians usually have guards around them and use protective magic, so getting close to one isn't easy. Dale didn't actually have a reason to push himself this much, so people around him started to wonder what was driving him. Helmet sees Dale's hand wrapped up in bandages. He can tell Dale's been pushing himself hard, maybe too hard, and reminds him not to overdo it. Dale just nods, letting Helmet know he's got his reasons for going this far. Dale grinned and pointed out that, as the Duke Saxon's son, he couldn't just count on guards and magic to protect him. He had to step up and handle things himself. He knows this is a rare shot. Getting to train with one of the 7 swords of the continent isn't something that comes around every day. There's no way he's letting this opportunity slip by. Helmet couldn't help but laugh out loud. Dale's answer really caught his attention, and for a second Helmet thought about how great it would be to have a son like Dale. Dale grinned, realizing that today was the day Helmet finally noticed what he'd done right. Right then, Duchess Elena showed up. She noticed everyone seemed pretty hyped, and Dale greeted her right away. Dale wondered what brought her out to this freezing place. She explained that she wanted to see for herself just how much effort her son was putting in. She mentioned she's got some news for him too, and brings up the birthday present he wanted. Dale stands there with a puzzled look, his mind racing as he tries to recall what present he wanted. Dale remembered a time when he asked his parents if he could have a little sister. The memory hit him out of nowhere, and he just stood there, surprised by what he'd said back then. His mom smiles at him, reminding him that he's got to look after his little sister now. Dale lights up right away, full of energy, making it pretty clear he's totally on board. 10 months later, Dale stands by his newborn sister, watching her quietly. He can't help but notice how tiny she is, fitting so easily in his mom's arms. There's something about seeing her for the first time that just leaves him a little stunned. He's never seen anyone this small before. Dale reached out and gently touched the baby's cheek, still trying to wrap his head around the fact that she was actually his little sister. He couldn't help but think about how incredible she was, just lying there, so small and new. Dale's mom looks over at him and offers to let him hold the baby. He pauses, a little unsure and fidgety, not really sure if he's ready for that. His mom gives him a look that says he shouldn't give up so easily. The Duke just shrugs, acting like holding her is no big deal. He makes it seem like it wasn't hard at all when he did it himself. Dale carefully held his baby sister in his arms. His mom watched them and smiled, pointing out how much the little one looked like Dale when he was younger. Dale glanced down at his sister, noticing the similar features and thinking about how weird and cool it was to see himself in her face. He felt a bit awkward but also kind of proud, realizing he was now the older brother. Duchess Elena noticed something strange. Whenever the baby's dad held her, the baby would start crying non-stop. But now, in Dale's arms, the baby just looked up and smiled, totally quiet and calm, like she finally felt comfortable. This caught Elena off guard. She hadn't expected it at all. Dale stood there holding his baby sister carefully in his arms while his dad watched him. He could feel the tiny weight of her, and it was a weird but kind of cool moment for him. He wasn't really sure what to think, but he tried to act calm, even though his hands were a little shaky. His dad seemed pretty interested in how Dale was handling it, probably just checking if he was okay with the whole big brother thing. Dale tells his dad that even though she barely weighs anything, it still feels like he's carrying something heavy. The Duke sits him down and tells him about how heavy life can get sometimes. He wants him to remember this moment, hoping it sticks with him no matter what happens next. The Duchess let Dale know it was time for his lesson. Miss Sabia was already waiting for him, so he had to get moving. The scene moves over to the snowy plains. Teacher Sabia lets Dale know that it's time for some hands-on training, a real duel out in the cold. Dale hesitated, unsure if he should really go for it. Sabia gave him a look that told him to stop holding back and just give it everything he's got. Dale nodded and started drawing out a magic circle, focused on getting every line right. Sabia got ready, curious to see how much Dale had improved since the last time they did this. Dale steps forward and sends a big chunk of ice flying straight at his teacher. Sabia barely reacts as the icebolt flies toward her. She catches it right in her hand like it's nothing, then crushes it into pieces. It's obvious she thinks that move was way too easy to handle, especially for the start of a fight. She waves the last ice shard at him, acting all smug. Dale just stands there, frozen, not really sure how to react to the way she's acting. Sabia suddenly hurled the shard right at Dale, catching him off guard. She really didn't hold back. Dale had to react fast, scrambling to put up his defense before the shard could hit him. The ice projectile slammed into the ground right where Dale was standing, and a blast went off around him. Dale pushes himself up off the ground, catching his breath. He knows that if he hadn't managed to block that hit, things could have gone way worse for him. Sabia watched him, impressed by how fast he threw up that ice shield to keep himself safe. Sabia seemed pretty impressed with how well Dale did and wanted to see what else he could pull off. Dale took a breath, thinking about his next move. This time he decided to go for a different spell, something called Ice Wall. He focused, ready to give it another shot. Dale crouches down and presses his hands against the ground. He focuses, and the ice wall starts to rise up in front of him, just the way he wants. Sabia didn't expect this at all. He couldn't figure out why someone would suddenly throw up an ice wall during a duel. It didn't really fit with how most people usually fight, so he stared at the wall, trying to guess what was coming next. Sabia figures out that Dale somehow used a formula to make the ice way stronger. The ice isn't just cold and slippery now, it's packed together so tight it's basically as tough as steel. He keeps thinking about why he suddenly put up his guard. Maybe he just needs a quick break after her last hit. Behind the wall, Dale was getting ready to cast a new spell. He focused on Ice Explosion, working through the steps of the fragmentation formula in his mind. He tells the wall to blow up. The huge ice wall suddenly blows apart, sending sharp pieces of ice flying everywhere. Sabia's eyes go wide as she catches on that the blast isn't random, it's meant to hit anyone nearby. Before she can react, she's right in the path of the flying shards. Dale pumped his fist, proud of how his attack landed. He couldn't help but think back on the spell he just used, replaying how well it worked in his head. He started by making a tough ice barrier, way stronger than usual. Then he pressed it down even more, making it super dense. In his head, he went over how he made the ice tougher by locking its molecules together before squeezing it smaller. After that, he hit it with some explosive magic. Basically, all this turned the ice into something like a grenade, ready to go off. Dale stands tall, his eyes locked on the rising smoke ahead. He's sure that this attack is different. His teacher probably won't be able to avoid it this time. Dale spots his teacher's shape through the smoke. At first, he's worried, watching closely. But then, as her body suddenly goes stiff and breaks apart right in front of him, his fear ramps up. He can't help but call out her name, panic taking over as he realizes what just happened. Just as Dale is trying to process what happened with the ice statue that looked exactly like Sabia, the real Sabia steps out from behind it, smiling like nothing's wrong. For a second, Dale freezes. He thought she was gone when the statue broke, but now he gets it. What shattered wasn't actually her, just some kind of trick. Sabia noticed a small cut on her cheek from the attack and couldn't help but admit that his skill was impressive. She's surprised, because she never thought a low-level magician could actually hurt one of the Tower Elders. Dale rushed to say sorry, not wanting Sabia to think he hurt her on purpose. Sabia seemed calm about it, letting Dale know she understood. She even said she was thankful for what happened, which just left Dale scratching his head, not really sure what she meant. Teacher Sabia looked at Dale with a small smile, clearly thankful for what had just happened. She seemed to think that Dale showing his true power meant he actually trusted her. Sabia got down on one knee in front of him, looking proud. She seemed genuinely happy, like a teacher who's really proud of her student. Dale wasn't sure if he really meant it, so he checked, but Sabia just smiled and let him know she really believed he was doing great. Sabia reached over and ruffled Dale's hair, clearly impressed by what he'd managed to pull off with the magic formula. Dale just shrugged it off, making it obvious he thought Sabia deserved all the credit for teaching him everything he knew. Dale goes quiet when he sees his teacher drifting off, clearly deep in thought. Later on, the Duke notices the mark on Miss Sabia's cheek and brings it up. She explains it happened during a training session with the young lord. She admits she messed up because she's still learning, but she's honestly impressed by how precise his magic was. The Duke always carried this sense that he owed her something, that he could never fully pay her back for everything she'd done. Sabia always enjoyed teaching someone who actually had talent. It made things easier and a bit more fun for her. The Duke, noticing this, saw his chance and didn't waste any time. He went ahead and asked her for another favor, not even trying to hide how bold he was about it. She lets him know he can say whatever's on his mind. The Duke let everyone know that some orcs had made it over the mountains and were now in their territory. It wasn't a huge invasion or anything, just enough trouble that a small group of knights could deal with it. He picked Dale to join the fight. Right away, she shook her head, thinking the young lord still wasn't ready for something like this. The Duke made it clear he wasn't expecting anyone to be a hero in battle. Instead, he reminded everyone that the Saxon family was supposed to look out for the territory and keep it safe. That responsibility came with the name, whether they liked it or not. As the oldest son, he knows he's got responsibilities, just like everyone expects. He understands what he has to do, and he doesn't try to get out of it. Sabia stood there, unsure of what move to make next. Her mind was racing with all kinds of thoughts. Then the Duke spoke up, letting her know that he planned to give Dale his own personal artifact. He turns to her, hoping she'll show him how to handle this new power. He knows he can't do it alone, so he looks for her help, wanting to learn how to keep it under control. The artifact is known to be seriously powerful. People say it holds a lot of energy and memories inside. If someone wants to use it, they have to give up either their own life or a ton of mana. There's no easy way around it. As someone's power grows stronger, things get riskier and harder to control. If someone pushes it too far, it could even cost them their life. The Duke starts talking about how the Saxon family has been in charge of these powers for a long time, way back through the generations. Then the story jumps to the front of the castle's artifact armory, setting up for what's coming next. The Duke turned to Dale, eyeing him with that serious look dads get when something big is coming up. He reminded Dale that, as the oldest son, he had some responsibilities, especially with the battle on the horizon. Dale could tell this was about stepping up, not just for himself, but for the whole family. The weight of it all started to settle in, and he knew he couldn't avoid it any longer. Dale's eyes widened when he heard there was going to be a battle. At first, he couldn't believe it, but then a grin spread across his face. This was finally his chance to get in on the action. The Duke made it official. Dale was going to be part of the team heading out to take down the orc horde. The Duke swings open the armory door. Before letting him inside, he makes it clear that learning to control the Saxon family's dark power comes first. Dale walks into the armory, his eyes scanning all the artifacts lining the walls. He can't help but be amazed by the collection. His dad starts talking, letting Dale know that these are all artifacts from the Demon Lord's domain, and it's their job to look after them. Dale tries to take it all in, realizing how important this place really is. Dale listens as the guy explains. These items have been in their family for generations, picked up during the battles to take back the Demon Lord's territory. They're not just regular gear, they're special. As Dale holds them, he can actually sense the magic pulsing from each piece, way stronger than anything he's used before. The Duke looks over the items and makes it clear that each one is dangerous. He tells him to be careful and not to mess with them until he knows how to handle them properly. While the Duke was talking, he looked over and realized Dale was suddenly gone. He paused for a second, trying to figure out where Dale could have slipped off to. Dale was already inside, looking around for an artifact that felt right for him. Out of nowhere, one of the artifacts started talking to him. It picked up on all the anger he'd been carrying around and knew he was after payback. Other artifacts started chiming in, trying to get his attention. Some wanted him to pick them so they could help him beat the bad guys. One artifact was different. It straight up called him out, daring him to put it on and go after the enemy himself. He notices that these dark-powered artifacts seem to react to the anger he's been holding inside. He turns down every option that pops into his head, thinking that none of them are enough for him. Deep down, he knows he wants something way more intense. He comes to a halt when he spots a cloak lying next to him. He hadn't noticed it before and starts to think about how long it might have been there. Dale spots the cloak next to him and instantly knows what it is. It's that cloak of shadow he's seen before. He instantly recognizes the cloak. It's the same high-level artifact that belonged to Duke Berta, the guy who led the Demon King's army, the one he fought against in his last life. That cloak could create shadows out of nowhere, and dealing with it in battle was a total nightmare. He gets pumped and throws it on right away, but just as he's about to head out, his dad calls his name and stops him. He brushes off the warning and puts it on anyway. Right away, everything goes dark around him. It's like his mind has been pulled somewhere else, and in that emptiness, he can hear a voice inside him, over and over, saying that it's hungry. The Duke stood outside, watching everything unfold. He could tell something was up with the shadow. It definitely wasn't normal. You remember how people used to wear that cloak and control shadows, making them move around almost like they were alive, causing chaos wherever they went. To control the shadow creature, the person had to fully dominate it. Dale faces the shadow creature that's shown up in his mind. He quickly gets that this thing isn't going to go down without a fight. Outside, the Duke and teacher Sabia stood there, both staring at the huge ball of shadow covering Dale. They couldn't help but look uneasy, not knowing what was about to happen next. Sabia started to get worried because so much time had gone by. The Duke looked tense, like he was barely holding it together. He let her know that if things dragged on any longer, he'd probably lose control, and the shadow creature would take over. Sabia hears the news and it really gets to him. He looks pretty upset, and it's clear this isn't what he wanted to happen. The Duke watches Sabia, sees how rough he's taking it, and makes up his mind. They both know things have gone too far, so the Duke decides they can't just stand by anymore. They've got to step in and get the guy out, even if it means doing it the hard way. Before anyone can step in, the shadows clear out fast. Dale stands there, now wearing his new cloak. His dad spots him and calls out, and Dale answers back without looking rattled at all. Sabia hurries over to Dale, clearly worried about him. Dale, though, just brushes it off and acts like it's nothing. He only felt a tiny sting. The Duke watches, surprised, trying to figure out how Dale could come out of it totally okay. The Duke couldn't help but stare, still trying to figure out how a little kid like that could handle something so strong. It just didn't add up in his mind, seeing someone so young holding onto an artifact that powerful. Dale steps in with a grin, catching everyone's attention. He looks at his dad, clearly interested, and asks if he can mess around with more of the artifacts. The Duke and Sabia can't believe what he just asked. Both of them freeze for a second, caught off guard. The Duke seems unsure but goes along with it, while Dale is clearly excited and grateful. Dale spends the whole day checking out all the cool stuff in the armory, going from one artifact to the next, not wanting to miss anything. A few days later, out on the training ground, Sir Helmet spotted Dale. Right away, he noticed the cloak Dale had on. It caught his attention fast because he knew exactly what it was, the Cloak of Shadow. Dale nodded, letting everyone know it was true. Helmet mentioned that this artifact was usually pretty tough to deal with, then checked in to see how Dale was holding up. Dale shrugged it off, saying it didn't really get to him. Just a little tingle, nothing serious. Helmet thinks it's pretty weird. Dale just grins and comes up with some random excuse, saying the cloak probably didn't want to be alone. The creature spotted him right away and stuck to him, maybe hoping to become his friend. Helmet couldn't help but laugh when he heard the young lord talk about the creature. He thought it was kind of wild how the kid could look at something that dangerous and just see it as lonely. Helmet figured the young lord must have a pretty good heart to think that way. Dale felt grateful to his helmet for the advice as he looked down and saw the shadow creature trapped under his foot. The thing tried to move, but it was stuck, barely able to squirm. He lets Helmet know there's something he wants, and Helmet nods, looking ready to help with whatever the young lord needs. Dale asks for an actual fight to help with his training. Helmet nods with real excitement, determined to prove himself to the young lord. He makes up his mind right then that he won't let him down. While getting ready for the duel, Dale wonders if picking one of the 7 swords of the continent as his training partner is a bit much. Just being near the guy is intense, and it's honestly kind of hard to focus. Helmet could tell the guy was tense, so he let him know he'd just stick to regular sword moves, nothing fancy like using aura. Dale figures Helmet isn't giving it his all. Deep down, he believes a real knight should fight with everything he's got, no holding back. He gets ready to attack, and dark shadows start to slip out from under his cloak. In his head, he's not just focused on the fight, he's using this as a chance to get better at handling the Cloak of Shadows. For him, this battle is really just practice, even if it looks like a real fight to everyone else. He thinks the real worth of the artifact depends on whether he can turn the shadows into strong weapons. He knows this training is important, so he goes for it and sends a Shadow Blade barrage right at Helmet. Helmet takes the hit head on, not even flinching. Dale just stares, wide-eyed, as he notices the broken blades. Helmet had snapped them apart using nothing but his own strength. He stands there, not even using any aura, and just can't believe how strong this power is. It's honestly scary, and he can't help but stare, trying to wrap his head around it. Helmet started laughing, clearly impressed by how well the young lord did. He looked pretty pumped as he let everyone know it was his turn to go on the offensive. Dale steps back fast, readying himself to block whatever's coming next. Helmet stops in his tracks as dark, spiky shadows suddenly shoot up from the ground right in front of him. The thorns cut off his way forward, leaving him caught off guard. Helmet couldn't help but be impressed by how the cloak pulled off ambushes like this. Helmet brings his sword down hard on Dale's shadowy shield. The hit lands heavy, and Dale can't help but let out a groan as he takes the impact. Dale holds his ground, blocking each of Helmet's attacks, but the hits keep coming hard and fast, making him slide back. Watching this, Helmet can't help but be impressed. He tried to figure out how the guy blocked his hit, especially since his own swings were tough enough to break regular swords. Helmet looks at the artifact in his hands, and can tell right away it's on a whole other level from anything he's seen before. Helmet couldn't hide how pumped he was, urging Dale to keep going for another 10 rounds. The two of them kept going at it, trading blows and pushing each other to their limits. That day, once training wrapped up, the regular knights standing around started talking about how none of them had ever made it past 2 rounds when facing Commander Helmet. They just couldn't shake the sense that something was off, like there was this invisible barrier separating them from Dale. A few days later, when it was finally time to leave, Duchess Elena couldn't hide how uneasy she was. She kept looking at Dale, clearly not wanting to let him go somewhere that risky. He wants her to feel better, so he lets her know his dad and Sir Helmet will be there with him. His mom kept bringing up how she was concerned he might get hurt. He looked at his mom with a serious face, letting her know that he needed to get stronger. He wanted to be ready to handle everything that came with leading the Duke's family in the future. He checks on his baby sister Liz while she sleeps. Watching her, he thinks about how he needs to get stronger and learn more, so one day he'll be ready to look after her and his parents. He looks at his mom and really wishes she'd let him get stronger. He just wants to be able to protect her. Elena listens to what he says, and it really gets to her. She nods, understanding where he's coming from, and decides to go along with it. Before she leaves, she gives him a look that says she wants him to stay safe, then heads out, leaving him standing there. He tells her he'll be back soon, and gives her a quick smile before heading out. Early that morning at the temporary base, Sir Helmet let the Duke know the troops were all set to head out. The Duke turned to Dale and told him to give the order to march. Dale didn't expect that. His dad went on to say that the black cavalry meant a lot to their family, and one day, Dale would be the one leading them. The Duke stands firm, making it clear that these men belong to him. That's when Dale finally gets it. They aren't his father's knights at all, they're his own. This is Dale's first time stepping into a fight as himself, and he's sure things are going to turn out differently now. He lets everyone know it's time to head out. He lifts his fist, signaling the soldiers to get ready. He calls them the proud fighters of House Saxon. The knights respond right away, making it clear they're behind their young leader and ready to do what he says. The commanders told everyone where to go, and the unit started getting into place. There were 250 knights in total, and the plan was clear. Everyone knew what they had to do. He's set to become part of the elite guard unit up in the White Mountains, the group everyone calls the Winter Guards. The plan for the fight gets laid out. There are about 1,000 orcs that need to be taken down. The orcs, tired of freezing and starving, made their way across the upper part of the Saxon River. Now, they were moving closer to the lower stream, hoping for better luck. The Duke's soldiers got word of this and decided to move fast. They planned to cross the lower stream before the orcs arrived, aiming to catch them off guard with a surprise attack. There were about 250 guys stuck on one side of a deep river, and everyone knew there was no easy way across. That's when teacher Sabia took charge. She told everyone to clear some space so she could work her magic literally. With everyone watching, she got ready to make an ice bridge right over the water. Dale nodded, grateful that she showed up to help out in the fight, even though everyone knew she usually stayed away from anything violent. He respected that she put her beliefs aside just this once to back him up. Sabia forms a huge ice bridge stretching across the river. He steps back and signals to the troops, letting them know it's safe to head over. The guys watch, a bit impressed, as the frozen path glimmers in the light, making it easy for everyone to move across. The Duke nodded at her, showing he appreciated what she did. Sabia hoped he'd win, her mind already thinking about what would happen next. Dale waves goodbye to his teacher and hops onto his horse, ready to head out on his own. She spots him instantly and smiles, thinking about how the student always keeps her on her toes. Not long after, over at the orcs' temporary camp, things started to shift. The Winter Guard archers hide out, waiting for the right moment. When the camp is quiet and no one expects trouble, they let loose with a bunch of flaming arrows. The arrows streak through the air, lighting up the night as they rain down on the camp below. Exploding arrows came down fast, hitting the orcs and throwing everything into chaos. The blasts sent dirt and bits of weapons flying, and the orcs scrambled, totally caught off guard. The whole place turned into a mess as the arrows kept coming, leaving the orcs in total disarray. The orc yells out, his face twisted with rage, standing in the middle of the burning chaos. Sir Helmut tells the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Knight battalions to move out and charge in a wedge shape, getting everyone ready for a strong push forward. Helmut rode alongside Dale, glancing over to see what he thought. Dale watched the horses, quietly sizing up the whole situation. He noticed they were moving pretty fast, about 40 kilometers an hour. He points out that the knight and horse are really heavy, so when they start moving, they pick up speed fast. He figures out that when knights use a lance about 3 or 4 meters long and back it up with their own energy, not even orcs can stand in their way. The knights charge straight through the orcs without much trouble. Dale glances over, noticing how one-sided the fight is. The Duke nods, almost like he's proud, showing off just how strong the knights from his duchy really are. Helmut let the young lord know he shouldn't let his guard down yet. He made it clear that things were just getting started. The fight between the knights and the orcs keeps going. Swords clash and shields take a beating as both sides push hard, neither one backing down. The air is thick with tension, and everyone is giving it everything they've got. Helmut let everyone know the ambush worked, but it hadn't wiped out the enemy. Now, the team needed to fall back, get themselves together, and hit back harder with more attacks until the job was done. The order to pull back comes through, and the troops start moving away from the fight. The knights started pulling back, leaving the orcs standing around, not sure what to do next. 2 orcs charged forward, yelling as they ran. One of them spotted a knight who was falling behind and quickly hurled a spear straight at him. The knight takes a hit to his arm, and his horse gets stabbed in the neck by a spear. The horse stumbles, and the knight ends up crashing down onto the ground. Dale comes to a halt and glances over at the knight. Helmut, standing nearby, points out how things just keep going downhill for them, his voice flat and unimpressed. The Duke looked at his army and figured they'd lost a man, thinking the knight was done for. Dale, on the other hand, couldn't help but wonder if the knight was actually gone for good. The Duke explains that one of House Saxon's best swords has ended up in enemy hands. Dale spins around fast, confused about why everyone is just standing there, watching and not doing anything. He spots an orc charging at the injured knight. Looking at the steep slope, he knows riding his horse down won't get him there in time. He shuts his eyes and focuses, knowing he has to get through the orc's tough skin from where he's standing. Orcs are way harder to hurt than most monsters, so he realizes his usual magic isn't going to cut it and starts figuring out how to change it up. He keeps his focus, knowing he has to get through the orc's tough skin from where he's standing. He starts thinking about how to change his icebolt spell, maybe turning it into something more like a bullet, something that could hit exactly where he wants, almost like a sniper shot. He thinks it'd be smart to throw in a sniper rifle formula too, just to make the bullet formula work even better. He reaches out and fires off his new spell. It's like an icebolt, but now it shoots with the speed and precision of a sniper. The spell launched right away, sending a sharp blast of ice straight through the orc's head. The orc, who'd been going after the injured knight, dropped without another move. The orc drops to the ground, lifeless. Helmut, watching from where he stands, notices that the shot was on point even from far away. Dale jumps onto his horse and takes off down the hill without hesitating. Sir Helmut watches him go, caught off guard and left wondering what Dale's up to. Duke Jackson steps in and tells Helmut to back off. Helmut doesn't see it coming and just stands there, caught off guard. The Duke smiled to himself, impressed that Dale had come up with his own formula while still so young. The fact that it was actually dangerous just made it even more surprising. Dale's got his own thing going on inside his head, like he's already figured stuff out for himself. Dale runs over to help the injured knight. As he gets there, he sees the other orcs gathering together again, getting ready for something. He quickly figures out he's got two problems on his hands. First, there's the knight right in front of him, completely freaked out and stuck on the ground, unable to get back up. The next thing he noticed was that his special move took way too long to use during a fight. It just wasn't practical when things got intense. He started thinking about how math formulas get shorter and easier to use, and figured he needed to do the same with his own technique. He starts coming up with names in his head, something short and cool, like Ice 98 Magnum. He thinks the name's still too long, so he settles on Icebolt instead. Just then, another orc charges at the knight, who's clearly freaking out. Dale, not wasting any time, uses his new spell and fires off an ice bullet. The ice bullet shot straight through the orc's head. The orc crashes down just behind the knight. The knight's eyes go wide when he spots Dale, clearly freaked out and confused about why the young lord showed up for him. Dale steps up to where the knight has fallen. He looks down at the guy, trying to keep things calm. Even though the scene's a bit tense, Dale seems pretty steady, doing his best to reassure the knight that everything's alright. He smiled, looking proud, and let him know that House Saxon always sticks by a loyal sword. The knight felt something heavy in his chest, kinda surprised by how much it meant to him. The other orcs start yelling and move closer. Dale gets ready to use his magic, bracing himself for whatever's about to happen. He throws on his cloak of shadow, and shadows start swirling around him. Sharp, dark blades shoot out from the shadows, slicing toward the orcs. He grinned and sent his shadows out, letting them swallow up the enemies. One of the orcs looked up, eyes wide, frozen in fear. Dark shapes dropped down on the orcs, ripping through them fast. The orcs barely had time to react before they were taken out, one after another. It was messy, quick, and left the whole place a lot quieter than before. The shadows close in on the orcs, tearing them apart until only their skeletons are left behind. He looks over at the last orc standing, a small grin on his face, almost like he's wondering why this one hasn't bolted yet. Without wasting any more time, he raises his hand and uses his ice bullet spell. Once he took down the last orc, he felt things had finally settled. Behind him, the knight struggled, frozen in place. His fear was obvious, he just couldn't get his legs to move, no matter how hard he tried. Sir Helmet showed up with the other knights just as Dale was helping the injured knight. Dale looked tired but relieved the backup was finally here, and he trusted Helmet to handle things from there. Helmet gave the signal, telling every knight battalion to move out at once. He was fired up, determined to fight for House Saxon, and his energy pushed everyone into action. The knights rushed forward, their spirits lifted as they fought for young Lord Dale. Not long after, back at the Saxon base, Dale's father let him know the orc mission was finished and gave him some recognition for it. Dale stood there, hearing that everything had gone according to plan. The atmosphere around the base felt lighter, with people moving around, relieved that the job was done. Dale could sense his dad's pride, and even though he tried to play it cool, he couldn't help but feel good about what they had accomplished. Once the fighting was over, the Duke called for his son Dale. He wanted to talk about what had just happened and had something on his mind about the way things went down. The Duke looked at his son, clearly not happy about what just happened. He wanted to know why his son would do something so reckless, running straight into enemy lines by himself. Dale swallows hard, confused about why he's getting called out. The Duke wants to know why. Dale brings up what he told his dad before, about how he's supposed to lead the Knights of House Saxon one day. He points out that, with that in mind, he just did what someone in his position should do. He handled the mission like a future leader would. The Duke just shuts down the idea, not buying it at all. Dale can't believe it. His dad's always been the type to look out for his knights, so seeing him act like this now really throws Dale off. He's left trying to figure out what's going on with his father. Dale couldn't stay quiet anymore. He looked at his dad, the Duke, and wanted to know why he just stood there when one of their knights was in trouble. Dale needed answers not just for himself, but because he couldn't understand how his father could let something like that happen without stepping in. The Duke tells everyone how the northern part of House Saxon always gets hit by monsters from the Demon King's side. The knights up there know it's rough. They fight off attacks all the time and never really think backup will show up. They just do their job, standing their ground pretty much on their own. Dale didn't agree with what was happening. He still wanted to help the knight who had always stood by his dad. The Duke, though, didn't just let it slide. He looked at Dale and asked something heavy, hinting that maybe Dale had been in a similar spot before. The Duke kept teaching, making it clear that knights need to use their own heads and make quick decisions if they want to stay alive during a fight. When Dale stepped in, the others started to think that someone would always show up to bail them out. The Duke looks around at his knights and thinks about how they always seem to rely on others instead of stepping up themselves. He can't help but question if any of them would actually make it through tough times with that kind of attitude. The Duke explains what he's supposed to do. He steps in only when the knights run into something they can't deal with on their own. That's just part of what the Saxons have to take on. Dale just stands there not saying anything. It hits him that he totally forgot about something he used to believe in back when he was Han Sion. Even with all that going on, Dale stood his ground, looking like he wasn't about to back down. The Duke smiled and rested his hand on his son's shoulder. Watching his son actually follow through on his beliefs really stood out to him. He wanted his son to remember that moment and hold on to it. He told him to head back to the castle. Word got around fast about the Duke's young son charging straight into a pack of orcs just to help out one knight. People across the Empire couldn't stop talking about it, and the story quickly became the latest thing everyone was gossiping about. People liked to talk, and the stories kept growing. Some were even saying the young master took down 1,000 orcs all by himself, even though everyone knew that was way over the top. Rumors about what happened started spreading fast all over the Empire. Most of what people heard was pretty close to the truth, but there were a few bits that got blown out of proportion. Still, Everyone seemed to be talking about it, sharing their own versions with friends and strangers alike. Dale felt pretty embarrassed by what happened, but even he could tell things were starting to shift around the duchy because of it. A few days later, Dale showed up at the duchy's training ground at night. As soon as he walked in, all the knights stopped what they were doing and knelt down, showing their respect for him. He gets pretty embarrassed and hopes they'll stop doing that. Sir Helmut nods at him, a serious look on his face. He wants the kid to hold his head up high, not slouch or hide. Helmut talked to the knights, letting them know they needed to get tougher for their young master's sake. The knights listened, all fired up and ready to follow his lead. Dale noticed how pumped up everyone seemed around him. As he took it all in, a maid named Eve walked over to where he was standing. Eve lets him know the guests from House Erlehart are about to show up. He nods to her, then heads over to say hi to the others. He starts thinking about the special guests who are coming over soon. The guests turn out to be from the Erlehart family, a well-known group of warriors from Teutonia. People in the kingdom recognize them because their leader, Bartel, is known as the Sword God. The story keeps rolling as the narrator talks about the warrior house Erlehart. Back when the Empire started its big unification war, the kingdom of Teutonia got taken down. After the Sword God Bartel died, the Erlehart family just couldn't hold it together and everything fell apart. Back at the castle, Dale spots Sir Helmut looking distracted, like his mind's somewhere else. He figures Helmut's probably thinking about the Sword God, the same guy who inspired him to become a knight in the first place. Helmut can't help but feel uneasy about the whole thing. The Duke glances over at Dale, noticing he's right on time and clearly has been working hard. Dale gives a quick nod, confirming he's been putting in the effort. Right then, a servant showed up and let everyone know the guest had arrived. The Duke nodded and told his people to treat the guest with a lot of respect. Two ladies stepped inside, Vanessa Erlehart and her daughter Charlotte. They both bowed politely. The Duke noticed they showed up alone, no bodyguards or servants with them, and gave them a nod of respect for arriving on their own. Vanessa Erlehart steps forward and introduces herself to the Duke of Saxon, keeping things pretty respectful. The Duke gives a small nod and welcomes her and the others, making it clear he's open to hearing what they have to say. Vanessa steps forward and brings her daughter, Charlotte Erlehart, into the conversation. Charlotte isn't too happy about it and lets her frustration show, barely hiding how annoyed she is with her mom. Dale can't help but notice how weird her reaction was. He keeps thinking about it, trying to figure out what's really going on with her. Out of nowhere, Charlotte raised her voice at her mom, confused and upset about why her mom was showing so much respect to those people. Vanessa froze for a second, completely thrown off, and quickly called out to her daughter, trying to get her attention. Vanessa tries to quiet her daughter, but the Duke steps in. He keeps his cool and seems to get that they've probably had a rough trip and are worn out. Dale gets asked by the Duke to hang out with Lady Charlotte and give her a tour of the castle. He doesn't mind and says yes. He reaches out his hand, letting Charlotte know which way to go. He tries to reach out and help, but she smacks his hand aside and raises her voice, making it clear she doesn't want him anywhere near her. Dale freezes, caught off guard by what just happened. Meanwhile, the Duke and Duchess stand nearby, holding their baby, both looking at Dale with wide eyes, clearly not expecting any of this. Charlotte rolled her eyes at the nobles, clearly annoyed by how stuck-up they acted. Vanessa didn't waste any time. She got mad at her daughter and told her to say sorry to the young lord right away. Charlotte doesn't even look back and storms out of the room, slamming the door behind her. Dale hurries after her, calling her name and trying to get her to stop, but she's already gone. Charlotte slammed the door behind her. Vanessa looked embarrassed and started saying sorry over and over for how her daughter acted. She tried to explain that Charlotte doesn't usually act like this, but something happened not long ago that's got her all worked up. Duchess Elena looked over, curious about what was going on. Vanessa told the group that Count Brandenburg, who's known as a holy knight, was put in charge as the inspector of their lands not too long ago. Everyone knew Count Brandenburg. He was just as well known for his skills as a holy swordmaster as he was for that weird nickname, the Pig King. He's always on the lookout for someone with crazy sword skills, hoping to have a kid who's just as talented. Whenever he spots someone who stands out with a blade, he gets fixated, willing to do whatever it takes to claim them for himself. She points out that he acts this way even when the girl is still underage. She lets him know they just got away in time, before anything worse could happen to her daughter. But even after escaping, those memories stuck with them, impossible to forget. She would do whatever it took to keep her daughter safe. But after losing her status, she didn't have much of a say anymore. Knowing she couldn't protect Charlotte on her own, she went to the Duke and asked if Charlotte could work as a maid in House Saxon. She hoped this way, Brandenburg wouldn't be able to mess with her daughter ever again. Dale spots Charlotte over at the training ground. He looks at her, trying to figure out why she showed up in a place like this. Maybe she's got some kind of connection to the knight, something in her that brought her here. He's curious if she even knows where she's heading, but it turns out she doesn't have a clue. She glanced at his hand, the one she'd slapped earlier, checking if he was alright. He just brushed it off, acting like it was nothing, and tried to keep things chill so she wouldn't stress about it. Charlotte finally lets out a breath, looking more at ease now. Dale spots the traces of tears on her face and figures she's still caught up in everything that went down. Even though Charlotte usually acts tough, Dale can tell she's really just a kid underneath it all. Out of nowhere, Charlotte spun around and pulled out her sword. She made it clear, in her own way, that if things were going to go down like this, the only option left was for him to face her in a duel. She tells Dale of Saxon to pull out his sword. Dale didn't really expect that. He watched Charlotte and realized she just kinda does her own thing, not really caring what anyone else thinks. Charlotte steps up and tells Dale she wants to challenge him to a duel. Dale's confused, not sure what's going on, so he asks her for a reason. She explains that she's heard plenty of rumors about him. Charlotte talks about how Dale's some kind of legend, the guy who took down 1,000 orcs on his own and even saved a knight. Dale knows that's not exactly the way things went. Hearing people talk like that makes him feel awkward, and he gets a little embarrassed about how everyone keeps blowing his story out of proportion. She knows that if she can beat him, the guy everyone says no one in the Empire can touch, then everyone will see just how strong she really is. She's determined to prove it to the world. She's determined to step up and keep her family safe from that guy. Dale sits there trying to figure out who she's talking about. Charlotte introduces him as Count Brandenburg, the swordmaster. Dale hears the name and can't help but freeze for a second. That's a name he's only heard in stories, the kind people whisper about or see trending online. He stares, trying to process if this is really happening. He clenches his jaw, thinking back to how the other guy from the Empire betrayed him. Hearing his own name pop up in this moment catches him off guard. He figures they both want the same thing, so teaming up with her could work. Still, before anything else, he thinks she needs to get a real sense of how things actually are. Charlotte stands there, looking lost, while Dale turns his back and heads over to grab a weapon. He leaves her behind, acting like she's too young to understand what's really going on. He gets ready and tells Charlotte to go all out. She looks annoyed but doesn't back down, clearly planning to give it her best shot. Charlotte charges forward, her rapier shining with this green light. She goes for Dale, but he's ready. He lifts his sword and blocks her strike. The fight keeps going as they trade fast blows, neither of them backing down. Dale keeps blocking her attacks one after another, not really breaking a sweat. He watches her moves closely and starts to pick up on her style. Every time he blocks what she throws at him, she snaps her wrist and comes back at him fast. He also notices she barely uses any aura at all, which stands out to him. He figures she must be using her aura to handle the rapier, since it's way too big for her. The thought crosses his mind that it's kind of like how mages create mana from those circles they use. Knights level up by building up aura inside themselves. He blocks another hit, and in the back of his mind, he can't help but remember her family's reputation. It's like he always knew she'd be this good. Her skills really run in the family. The fight rages on, and Charlotte doesn't let up. She keeps going after her opponent, never backing down. Charlotte flashes a confident smile. She figures if this is the best he can do, she's got the advantage. Charlotte thinks back to her childhood. She never got to meet her dad because he passed away before she was born. Growing up, her mom would share stories about him every night, keeping his memory alive for her. Her mom explained that now it was her turn to look after the family. As the sword god's daughter, she had to step up and keep everyone safe. She remembers her sword, always swinging, never slowing down. Even after her home was destroyed and her family scattered, she can't stop herself from getting mad, wondering why she kept fighting. She couldn't figure out why Dale kept stepping in her way all the time. Charlotte senses that something isn't right. She goes for another attack, but Dale blocks her sword with a quick move. She freezes for a second, surprised at how easily he handled it. He moves fast, grabbing her wrist and knocking the weapon out of her hand. It clatters to the ground, out of her reach. Charlotte's sword slipped from her hand and clattered onto the ground. She dropped down to her knees, totally confused and frustrated. It didn't make sense to her. She was the daughter of the sword god, but she still couldn't pull off a win. He walks up to her. She's got tears in her eyes, staring right at him. He explains why she isn't the sword god. He lets her know that there's nothing wrong with being proud of who her dad is. Dale looks at Charlotte with a serious face and lets her know that, right now, she just isn't strong enough to keep her family safe from that man. He makes it clear that the swordmaster, Brandenburg, is way stronger than him. His blade is on a whole different level. Hearing this, Charlotte just breaks down in tears, the truth hitting her hard. Charlotte just stands there, lost and unsure, not really knowing what comes next for her. Dale steps up, facing her straight on. He doesn't hesitate. He's confident, making it clear who he is, Dale of Saxon. He decided to put the family name on the line and take on the job of being the Erlhard family's guardian. Hearing this, Charlotte just froze. She didn't see it coming, and the news hit her hard. He goes on, making it clear that until she's ready to take down Brandenburg herself, he and his whole crew at House Saxon are going to have her back, looking out for her and making sure nothing happens to her. Charlotte wanted to know what was going on. He told her that everything happening right now was because her sword skills mattered that much. He looked at her seriously and asked her to promise that she'd stand by him and support House Saxon, no matter what. Charlotte cracked a small smile, clearly not the type to turn down an offer like this. She dropped to one knee in front of him, serious and respectful, and made her promise, putting her reputation as a knight on the line. It might have looked like just a regular promise between two kids, but there was something about how serious they were. The determination in their eyes made it feel like more than just words. It was as if they made a real oath. Later that day, Dale walked into his dad's office and let him know what happened at Lady Erlhard's place. Vanessa had asked, and now Miss Charlotte was working as a maid for the ducal family. The Duke noticed how quickly Charlotte said yes, which caught him off guard. He wanted to know what went down between them. Dale remembers the promise he made on behalf of House Saxon to look after the Erlhard family. For him, it's not just words. He's got a sense of duty to keep that commitment no matter what. The Duke wanted to know if his son used their family name just because he felt sorry for her. Dale shook his head, making it clear that wasn't the reason. The Duke wanted to know what Dale was after. Dale told him that Charlotte was the only one left from the Sword God's bloodline and, just like everyone guessed, she was crazy talented. He lets everyone know that Miss Charlotte promised to stay loyal to him. He's after something specific. One Sword God. He wants to use it to help out House Saxon. The Duke watched Dale's plan unfold and looked pretty pleased with it. Dale couldn't help but grin to himself, knowing that having the only heir of the Sword God on their side was a solid move against Brandenburg. The story jumps over to Malbork, the old capital of Teutonia. Count Brandenburg completely loses it. He's so mad that he starts wrecking his own stuff, breaking chairs and tossing things around the room. He feels his blood start to boil as he watches him take the first shot. In the background, one of his guys looks nervous and says sorry, probably for letting things get this far. He scolds them hard, clearly frustrated that they couldn't even handle catching one kid. It's obvious he doesn't get how they messed up something that should have been simple. The subordinate told his boss that they tried sending assassins, but those guys never even made it to Saxon territory. It looked like Charlotte Erlhart took them out before they could get anywhere close. Brandenburg glared at them, clearly annoyed, then turned his back and headed straight for his holy sword, Durandal. He thinks back to how things were before. He turns his attention to his holy sword, Durandal. He looks at the sword like it's the most important thing in his life, almost like it's his future partner. In his mind, he promises that he'll do whatever it takes to find the right person to carry on after him and use this sword, no matter what he has to go through. He calls for the Thieves' Guild to be brought in and tells someone to head over to the Duchy of Saxon. He's ready to do whatever it takes, even if it means dropping 1,000 gold pieces, just to get Charlotte brought to him. A week went by after Charlotte pledged her loyalty. She started getting used to life in the Duke's castle, but everything felt so different from what she knew back in Teutonia. The place was bigger, the rules were stricter, and she was busy every day with tough training to become a proper lady-in-waiting. Sparring with Dale turns into something she does every day now. Sir Helmut is always there, watching over their training sessions and checking if they're good to go. Dale nods that he's set, and Charlotte gives her own quick signal that she's good to go too. Helmut grinned and signaled that the duel was about to begin. Without wasting any time, the two of them rushed at each other, trading blows right from the start. The training match keeps going as both sides trade fast hits, each one trying to outdo the other. The fight between Dale and Charlotte kept going. Sir Helmut stood off to the side, watching them closely and quietly thinking about what was happening. Helmut watched what was happening and couldn't help but question if this was really just a fight between kids. From what he could tell, neither of them had skills anywhere close to actual knights yet. Can tell right away that these guys mean business. There's something dangerous about the way they move, fast, focused, and not messing around. The duel heats up. Dale grabs his cloak and swings it, trying to throw Charlotte off her game. Charlotte's nerves were on edge, but she didn't back down. Instead, she focused and lined up a sharp move, going straight for Dale. Helmut steps in right as Charlotte goes for her move, blocking her attack before anything else can happen. He's quick, grabbing Dale too, making sure he doesn't jump in for a counter. Helmut seems pretty impressed, letting them both know they did a solid job, and he gives Lady Charlotte a nod for her effort. She brushes off his compliments and gets straight to the point, wanting to know what she's missing. Pierce wanted to know if she understood what it really meant to use a rapier. She gave him an answer, looking pretty confident in herself. He shakes his head, explaining that it's really all about the legs. Basically, footwork is what matters most. He points out how Dale got in close and dodged her attack at the same time. That was the moment when she should have stepped back and given herself some space. Maybe waited for a better chance. He explains that when someone uses a rapier, bending and stretching their arm to hit harder actually makes the blade shake more. This shaking makes it tough to aim and land a perfect stab. Helmut figured Charlotte had to go back and work on her basics. Hearing this, Charlotte got frustrated. Helmut pointed out that Charlotte's stance and footwork looked pretty off. He could tell something wasn't right. Charlotte just admitted she never really had anyone to teach her the basics, so she kinda made things up as she went along. Helmut grinned when he noticed Charlotte's odd way of holding her weapon. He told her that since he was around, he'd make sure to help her fix it. Charlotte didn't like hearing that at all. She frowned, clearly annoyed by the way he described her stance. Helmut couldn't help but crack up, clearly messing with her just because she was adorable. Dale watched them from the side, realizing how fast Charlotte would improve with Helmut around. Helmut wasn't just anybody. He was one of the top 7 swordsmen on the whole continent. That thought hit Dale hard, and he knew he needed to step up his own game if he didn't want Charlotte to leave him in the dust. Later on, Dale goes over what he learned in magic training. He remembers how building a mana circle always starts the same way. He has to sense the mana moving around his heart. He waits for it to settle into a steady path, and once it does, he focuses on shaping the magic ring in his mind, almost like tracing out a pattern he's memorized. The thing is, this whole process usually drags on for years. But when Dale told his teacher, Sabia, that he'd already finished the second circle, she honestly couldn't hide how caught off guard she was. In his head, he goes over how this world measures mana rotation by RPM revolutions per minute. Most first circle mages usually hit around 300 RPM. He mentions that his speed for the first circle is up at 2000 RPM, and for the second circle, it's around 400 RPM. The minimum speed to grow the circle is 300 RPM, so he's already set to create the third circle. He figures that now that he's made it to the second circle, it's a good time to test something out. He wants to make his ice bullet spell better. He figures that if he can make the ice and the bullet stick together more tightly, the bullet will end up heavier and tougher. He plans to upgrade with a bigger barrel, so the shots spin faster and hit harder. He focuses and lets the enhanced spell fly, sending out the armor-piercing ice bullet. He checked out the result, kinda surprised at how simple it was to fire off an armor-piercing bullet. It hit him that just drawing one extra circle actually changed everything. Sabia looked impressed with how quickly Dale was picking things up. Dale didn't try to act all cool about it. He just nodded and showed respect, making it clear he thought she deserved the credit for helping him out. Sabia goes over everything that's happened lately, saving the night from the orcs and all the stuff that happened with Lady Charlotte. Watching him, she realizes this kid actually knows what he's doing with his powers. Even though his skills sometimes gave her chills, she couldn't help but trust him. No matter how intense things got, he always found a way to prove he deserved her trust. Deep down, she was proud to call him her student. Sabia suddenly wraps her arms around Dale, catching him off guard. He's not used to people getting this close out of nowhere, so the whole thing feels pretty awkward for him. That morning, Dale stood in the castle courtyard, lost in his thoughts about everything that had happened. He starts to wonder if she only thinks of him as a kid, but he pushes the thought away, knowing now's not the moment to worry about that. Early one morning, Dale headed out to the castle courtyard to get some training in. He figured he'd start things off by making an ice wall, just to see how sharp his skills were getting. He tries out a new spell he came up with called icebolt, 12-gauge buckshot. The ice wall breaks apart. Ice pellets started bouncing all over the place. He threw up a magic shield just in time, blocking the shots as they scattered around him. He grinned at how well the experiment worked, already planning to test out slug rounds later. But before he could get too caught up in his thoughts, someone called out and broke his focus. Charlotte showed up too, ready to get some training in. Dale noticed Charlotte nearby, moving through some familiar steps. He figured she must be practicing as well, and sure enough, Charlotte was working on the routine that Sir Helmut had shown her earlier. Dale notices that Charlotte actually looks like she's having fun picking up sword skills. She doesn't really know how to respond, so she just kind of looks away, a little awkward and embarrassed. Charlotte looked a bit uneasy as she remembered how she acted when she first met Dale. She felt bad for coming off rude back then and wanted him to know she regretted it. So, she quietly let him know she was sorry for putting herself first that day. He thinks what she did was way out of line, but he just grins and lets it slide, deciding to let her off the hook this time. He tells her she doesn't need to act so serious around him. Charlotte's face lights up and she nods, looking a lot more comfortable. Charlotte lets Dale know she actually enjoyed the cold weather around here. For her, the chill made training better, since she could cool off fast even when she worked out late. He smiles to himself, glad to know there's someone out there who gets it just like he does. Up in the castle, the Duke stood beside Duchess Elena as they looked out of the window, watching everything play out below. They stayed close, not saying anything, just taking in the scene and wondering what might happen next. The Duchess noticed how much their son had changed over time, seeing how he wasn't a kid anymore. The Duke, meanwhile, wanted to know if she thought they matched well as a couple. The Duchess just tells them that answers will come eventually. The Duchess looks at her son, knowing deep down that he struggles to show how he really feels. She decides she's got to support him, making sure he doesn't hide what's going on inside. For her, it's important that he stays honest with himself, even if it's not always easy. Later, on the edge of the duchy, Duchess Elena is out in the slums, keeping an eye on the relief efforts. She stands back, watching people hand out supplies and help out families who need it. Even though things are tough in this part of town, Elena makes sure everything runs smoothly and no one gets left behind. Her presence alone seems to keep everyone a bit more hopeful. In his mind, he thinks about how his mom goes out every week to hand out food and supplies to people who need them. He explains that he and Charlotte started at the school with her this year. While they walk, Charlotte notices a little kid who seems upset and steps in to help. The kid looks desperate, his eyes full of worry as he tries to get someone's attention. He keeps pointing back, making it clear that something's wrong with his mom and she needs help right away. The kid latches onto Charlotte's arm, looking desperate for her help. Dale and Charlotte trail behind the kid, but Dale can't shake the sense that something's off. He realizes they're leaving the main street's glow and slipping into a maze of alleys. It hits him that it was odd. The kid went straight to Charlotte for help, skipping all the adults around. Something about that just doesn't sit right. Dale catches sight of a kid on a nearby rooftop just standing there and watching. Right away, he knows the kid is part of the Thieves Guild. It's obvious to Dale that Charlotte's the one they're after. Still, he can't help but wonder why they'd make their trap so easy to notice. The kid pauses for a second, says he's going to find his mom, and then takes off running. Masked men closed in around Dale and Charlotte, cutting off any way to escape. The guys made it pretty obvious they weren't impressed to see nobles hanging around a place like this, almost like they thought it was a joke. Dale tensed up, while Charlotte tried to keep her cool, but things clearly weren't looking good. One of the guys steps forward and lets Dale know they're not here for him. They want the maid, Charlotte. He tells Dale it's better if he doesn't get involved. The guy grinned, holding up a dagger and making it clear that things could get dangerous if anyone tried anything stupid. Dale steps up in front of the thieves, letting them know who he is, Dale von Saxon. He makes it clear he's not about to let anything bad happen on his watch. The girl from House Erlhart, known by some for her tough reputation, stood out in the crowd. Even though she came from a big-name family, she carried herself with the same confidence as the guys from thugs like them. The leader of the thieves, with messy green hair, just rolled his eyes at the way the young noble tried to act all heroic. It was clear he didn't care much for the noble's sense of honor, almost like he thought it was a total joke. He thinks Dale should have picked a better time and place for what he did. He thinks Dale could use a lesson about how tough the world can be. Charlotte leaned in close to Dale, looking a bit uneasy as she admitted she'd forgotten her sword. Dale noticed her nerves and tried to calm her down, giving her a nod and a steady look, making it clear she didn't need to freak out. Dale spots a chance to give his new shadow cloak skill a try, using the chaos as an excuse for self-defense. The thieves don't waste any time. They surround Dale and Charlotte, moving in from every side, clearly hoping to finish things fast. One of the thieves suddenly noticed the air around him getting weird. Dale's shadows started to creep in, closing off their escape and making the whole place feel tense. The leader loses his cool and waves his guys off, making it clear they need to move. Dale notices how fast the leader thinks and figures he must be some kind of top thief. Without wasting any more time, he goes in for the attack. He tries out a new skill he picked up after hitting the second circle. He slips a shadow creature into one of the thieves, turning it into a parasite hidden inside them. The thief lets out a loud yell when the shadow creature forces its way inside him. The leader stares at Dale, his mind racing with fear about what Dale might be up to. The infected thief's body twisted and changed, turning into a messed up undead soldier. His jaw hung open as he let out a long, hungry yell that echoed through the room. The leader looked at his freaked-out crew and told them to take it down. Even though everyone was clearly scared, they knew they had to listen and get ready to attack whatever was in front of them. He pauses, realizing things are getting serious. One wrong move now, and everything could go downhill fast. He rushes forward and throws himself into the fight. He likes to brag that in this alley, nobody can really stop him. Not even if two oracles teamed up. His fangs and those bright blades he carries are enough to keep everyone on edge. Dale quickly blocked the attack with his shadows, not even breaking a sweat. He was already getting ready to strike back. Across from him, the thief leader looked frustrated, clearly not happy with how things were turning out. Dale tries out a new spell, blasting off something that looks like a double-barreled 12-gauge shotgun. He lifted his hand, and several bursts of magic shot out, landing straight on the leader. The leader gets knocked back hard by the hit, landing a few steps away. Charlotte stands there, frozen, her eyes wide as she watches everything happen. Dale stands in the middle of the alley, watching as the undead shadow soldier goes after another thief. He notices the leader took more than one hit to go down, probably because his body was covered in some sort of aura. The leader, still hurt but not giving up, pushes himself to his feet. Even though he's clearly struggling, he refuses to back down. He rushes forward, his face twisted with anger, making it obvious he's not done fighting yet. Dale lets his shadows loose, and they slice right through the leader, taking him out before he can even get near. The undead soldier let out a loud, desperate yell while ripping into another thief. It acted like it hadn't eaten in ages, tearing through the body in a way that made anyone watching feel uneasy. The whole scene was rough to look at, but impossible to ignore. When the fight wraps up, Dale walks over to Charlotte. She's sitting on the ground, catching her breath. He checks if she's okay, wanting to make sure she didn't get hurt. Charlotte lets him know she's fine. Dale grabs Charlotte's hand while nearby. One of the hurt thieves lets out a groan from the ground. The thief makes a run for it, but Dale reacts fast. He draws his weapon and fires off an ice bullet, hitting the guy right in the foot. The thief stumbles, his escape cut short. The last thief drops to his knees, desperate, looking at Dale for some kind of mercy. Dale doesn't say a word. He just calls back the shadow creature, and it slides across the ground, returning to his side. The thief, desperate to stay alive, tries to cut a deal. He's ready to spill everything he knows if it means he gets to walk away. Dale wanted to know if the thief was really telling him everything he knew. The thief, looking pretty desperate, nodded right away, trying to convince Dale he wasn't hiding anything. Dale prepared his spell, his face showing he honestly didn't care much about what was going on. He kept things cool and distant, making it clear he wasn't really invested. He lets out a blast of magic that takes down the last thief. Charlotte just stands there, frozen, not sure how to react. He lets her know that this side of the Duchy of Saxon, the side everyone's scared of, is real. But at the same time, it's the kind of strength that's going to keep her safe. He wanted to know if she was scared after what they just saw. She nodded and said she was a bit nervous. He could tell she wanted to make sure he didn't feel bad about it. She let him know it was fine, since he was just trying to look out for her. She remembers the promise she made to herself. If his family steps up to protect your family, then she'll have his back later on, ready to fight for him whenever he needs it. She feels grateful to him for giving her hope about what's ahead. Deep down, she decides she's going to work harder and get stronger from now on. He keeps his eyes on her, realizing deep down that he only accepted Charlotte because he felt guilty. He walks toward the fight, heading straight for the girl he once killed in his previous life. So, she decided to step up and be his sword. He had no idea how important it really was. At the same time, over at Count Brandenburg's castle, the Count scowled at the letter in his hands. It was an invitation to Saxon Castle, and judging by his expression, this was the last thing he wanted to see right now. The Black Duke, who ruled over Saxon, basically called him in to answer for what happened with the attempted kidnapping. Brandenburg understood that, as the Empire's holy sword, he couldn't really say no. No matter how he felt about it, he had to go along with what they wanted. A few days later, Count Brandenburg showed up at Saxon Castle. Inside the big hall, the Duke was sitting on his throne with Dale standing next to him. The Duke greeted the Count, mentioning how the trip to the castle must have been pretty tough. He was surprised to see him show up so fast. He realizes he didn't do much to greet them and feels a bit bad about it. Brandenburg just rolls his eyes and makes it pretty clear he thinks nothing beats getting called in by the Duke. He gets annoyed, thinking that Dale and Charlotte are just sneaky kids always up to something. The Duke kept talking, pointing out how everyone in the Empire was really uneasy after someone tried to kidnap a person in broad daylight on his land. He figures he knows why they called him in. He couldn't believe he was caught up in something so embarrassing, especially since he'd always been the Emperor's most loyal fighter. Just thinking about it made him annoyed. This kind of thing was supposed to be beneath him. While he talked, a thick, shadowy vibe started to pour out from the Duke, slowly creeping across the hall. Brandenburg jumps a little, caught off guard. While he tries to figure out what's happening, one of his friends notices the sudden wind picking up just as shadows start closing in around them. Everyone looks around, trying to make sense of it. Count Brandenburg's knights freeze up as the shadows start creeping closer, slowly swallowing them up. Panic sets in and some try to back away, but there's nowhere to go. Their armor feels useless now, and every second, the darkness closes in tighter. The knights started calling out to the Count, looking desperate. Brandenburg saw right away that his Holy Magdalena Knight Order had gone down fast, without even putting up a fight. He instantly knows that this is some serious dark magic. Duke Saxon stands there, calling down a powerful dark spell known as Ryle's Tempest. The Duke turned to Count Brandenburg, the guy known as the Sword of Sanctity. Without wasting any words, he made it clear that Count Brandenburg should get down on one knee and not move. Brandenburg looked pretty annoyed, not hiding how ticked off he was at what the Duke was up to. Meanwhile, the Duke just brushed him off, staying calm and acting like he couldn't care less. He didn't even seem bothered, almost as if he was daring Brandenburg to question him further. He lets him know this is his last chance. There's not going to be another one. Brandenburg clenched his jaw, annoyed at how things turned out. The pressure from the Duke's magic was too much, so he had to kneel, even though he really didn't want to. He tried to tell himself that the Black Duke probably had his reasons, but this just felt like way too much. Sitting high on his throne, the Duke made it clear that he'd called Brandenburg here to keep the peace. He warns the Count, making it clear that if the Count ever goes after the kids from Saxon again, he won't hold back. He promises to take out every member of the Brandenburg family if it comes to that. He really hopes the Count actually listens to this warning. Out of nowhere, he switched up how he was acting. He looked at the tired Count and, with a bit of sarcasm, motioned for him to come get warm. Brandenburg, clearly annoyed, answers back. Even though he's not happy, he still admits that he appreciates the Duke's help. He says he can't stick around because something's come up. The Duke nodded and sent him on his way, hoping he'd get home without any trouble. Dale stood by, watching everything unfold. He knew Brandenburg was one of the Emperor's closest guys, always loyal. Seeing what his dad just did to someone that important, someone tied to the Emperor, had Dale thinking hard. This small moment was about to set off something huge, something that would end up rattling the whole Empire. Dale can tell it's just a tiny spark right now, but he knows it won't stay that way for long. It's only a matter of time before it catches and grows into something bigger. He figures they'll be the one to finally bring down the Sword of Sanctity. Word got around pretty fast about the Sword of Sanctity bowing down to the Black Duke. While everyone was still buzzing about it, the Duke was already back in his office, just going about his day. The Duke stands next to teacher Sabia. Both of them look serious as they face what's ahead. Sabia stares at the bodies in front of her, frozen in place. She can hardly process what she's seeing. The Duke stands nearby and tells her that these are the same people from the Thieves Guild who went after Dale. The reality of the situation sinks in, and Sabia can't look away. He figures out that Dale's the one behind everything. She notices how messed up everything looks. There's a body with its insides spilled out everywhere, and another one that's been smashed up and full of holes. For the first time, she starts to wonder if maybe she taught Dale the wrong things. He lets her know that Dale's talent needs the right guidance, and she's the one with the experience to help. So, he offers her the job as chief advisor, hoping she'll take the lead and share what she knows. Sabia's eyes went wide as it hit her. This wasn't just about teaching anymore. They actually wanted her to join the Saxon family. The thought caught her off guard, and she tried to wrap her head around what that could mean for her life. He lets them know that Dale counts on her a lot, and trying to help him out is more than he can handle by himself. He's pretty sure things are going to change if she decides to help them out. She nods, showing she gets it. Teacher Sabia lets him know that understanding how Dale views the world is more important now than it ever was. Time moved on, and before anyone knew it, Dale turned 10. His birthday wasn't just any small party either, it was held in a huge, fancy banquet hall. This year's birthday party stood out because some guys from the Emperor's side showed up too. Someone important stood out in the crowd. Marquis Ulisa arrives and heads over to meet Lord Dale. He looks pretty pleased to see the young lord and makes sure Dale knows it. While the party went on, everyone started noticing how good the food tasted. The guests couldn't help but talk about it, passing around plates and nodding in approval. Every now and then, someone looked over at Duke Saxon, clearly impressed by how much effort he'd put into making the night special. The way he took care of everyone didn't go unnoticed. They couldn't believe how fancy everything was, especially since they were right in the middle of the north. Looking around, they realized all those worries about the duchy being too far from the empire didn't really matter anymore. Dale kept an eye on what was happening, realizing these guys were the main nobles from the imperial capital. They basically made up the emperor's inner circle, pretty much the most powerful group under his rule. He figures out pretty quickly why they showed up at this party. It's obvious now, they're here to send a warning. Word got out from the imperial family. They weren't just going to sit back while Count Brandenburg, known as the Sword of Sanctity, got disrespected. Standing in front of him was Marquis Ulysses, the messenger who totally got what this was all about. The Marquis looked Dale up and down, sizing him up. This was the first time he was seeing Dale in person, and he seemed curious about whether this young guy really was the one everyone called Lord Dale. Marquis Ulysses stepped forward and let Dale know who he was, calling himself the Crimson Lord. Dale starts thinking about who the Marquis really is. He remembers that the Marquis runs the Red Magic Tower, the one everyone knows for being all about fire magic and raw power. The people in that tower don't mess around. They believe that whoever's the strongest should be in charge, and that's just how things work in their part of the Empire. They jumped right in, ready to do whatever the Empire wanted. No second thoughts, they just went along with the plan, helping push the Empire's goals further. He thinks back to his old life, when the Red Tower mages put him through all kinds of forced magical changes. Marquis Ulysses turns his attention to Dale. He mentions that word has gotten around about the so-called miracle genius from the ducal family, a kid whose magic skills are on another level compared to anyone else in the Empire. He keeps talking, bringing up how people say Dale took down a whole bunch of orcs when he was just 9, all to save one of the family's knights. The man finishes his explanation, making it clear that Dale really is the Duke's son. Dale hears this and just gives a small smile, not showing much, but you can tell he's taking it in. He gives a quick nod and hopes the guy has a good time. He walks off, kind of tired from getting all those birthday messages the same way every year. He'd honestly rather be training with Charlotte right now, but she was busy with her duties. Since she was officially a lady-in-waiting and helped his mom a lot, hanging out with her wasn't really an option. But what really hits him is how risky it would be if anyone caught the sword god's daughter Charlotte training with a sword. Out of nowhere, he hears someone scream, followed by a man yelling at a maid to stay put. He looks around, trying to figure out where the noise came from. Dale hears some noise and heads over to check it out. He spots a man going after a maid who's down on the floor. The maid looks scared and tries to get away, but the guy isn't backing off. She keeps trying to remind him she works for House Saxon, hoping he'll stop. Dale takes in the scene, realizing the maid's in trouble and needs help fast. One of the guests, a big guy in the crowd, turns on her fast. He can't believe a maid like her would even mention the Duke's family name out loud. His face goes red, and you can tell he's not happy about it at all. He keeps on grumbling about how it's the young lord's birthday and everybody else is out there having a good time. He thinks hanging around at this party is pointless, and figures his time would be better spent with a girl. Looking at the maid, Eve, he makes it clear in a cold way that there will be serious trouble for her if she keeps resisting. The man tried to force the maid to obey him, but Dale stepped in, stopping him. Dale's voice was cold, making it clear he wasn't going to let this slide. The room went quiet as everyone watched Dale take control of the situation, standing up for the maid without backing down. The man freezes when he spots young Lord Dale. He looks nervous, clearly not expecting to run into Dale here. Instantly, he starts looking for a way to get himself out of trouble, trying to come up with an excuse or a quick exit. Pietro, the big guy, clearly wanted to get out of trouble. He acted rude, throwing out a cheap shot at the guy's age, basically questioning if he'd ever even been with a girl before. It was obvious he was just trying to distract from what was really going on. He steps forward, saying he'll handle the lessons himself. His grip on Eve is tight, and she's shaking, clearly scared. He keeps a knife close to her, making sure everyone sees he means business. Dale just brushes off the guy, trying to get under his skin. He glances at Eve, giving her a look that says everything's fine, letting her know there's nothing to stress about. He lets her know he's coming to help her soon. He figures that in a world where everyone's stuck in their own class, Pietro probably wouldn't expect a noble like him to start anything, especially since he's supposed to be an important guest from the Empire. He notices Pietro hesitating and takes the chance to throw an ice spell at him, hitting him straight on. Pietro hits the ground hard, but Dale just stares at him, determined not to give up or run away. He thinks about fighting the Emperor's guy, but deep down, he knows that would just end badly. Pietro jumped to his feet, clearly ticked off and wanting answers. Dale, not even flinching, just stared him down and told him to get on his knees. He raises his voice at Pietro, who just stands there frozen and wide-eyed. Not letting up, he tells Pietro again to get down on his knees and say sorry to Miss Eve. He explains that Miss Eve is actually part of House Saxon. Pietro didn't back down. He stood his ground, making it clear he wasn't just some random guy. He was there representing the Emperor. To him, it was a huge deal to get disrespected, especially if it was just to stand up for a maid. In Pietro's mind, putting him down like that was basically the same as going against the Emperor himself. Dale interrupts him, tossing out a sarcastic question about whether the Emperor likes messing around with other people's maids. Pietro suddenly freezes, not expecting to hear that. He stares at the guy, almost like he can't believe what just happened. His eyebrows pull together and his jaw tightens, as if he's about to call him out for even thinking of saying something like that. Right then, Duke Jackson showed up with Marquis Ulysses and the rest of the guests. Marquis Ulysses watched the scene unfold, a small smile on his face. He seemed pretty entertained by what was happening, almost like he was watching a wild highlight clip online. The Duke turns to his son Dale, wanting to know what all the noise is about. Dale points out Pietro and says he tried to attack one of the Saxon maids. One of the nobles turns to Dale, clearly not taking him seriously, and questions why he's acting so cold towards Sir Pietro over something that seems pretty small. Pietro jumps in right away, making himself look like the victim as he starts complaining to the Duke about how childish Dale is being. Dale stepped in, his face serious, stopping the guy before he could say anything else. Without wasting time, Dale wanted to know who gave him permission to get up in the first place. He speaks to everyone, letting them know that the nobles from the capital are there to stand in for the emperor. Pietro wasn't the kind of guy to play fair. He tried to make the emperor look bad by going after one of the maids, thinking no one would care what happened to her. He just couldn't stand the way Sir Pietro acted. It bothered him too much to ignore. Marquis Ulysses couldn't help but laugh when he heard the young lord's clever remark. He was honestly impressed, thinking this kid had some real wit. It wasn't every day someone could make him react like that. Ulysses' mood lightened up, and for a moment he saw the young lord in a new light. Someone sharp, not just another noble's kid. He realizes that everything the guy said was spot on. He couldn't believe someone who worked for the king would try to mess with a simple maid like that. The whole situation had him questioning everything about the people in power. He signals to his attendant, Talara, making it clear what he wants. He wants Talara to get rid of Pietro, who he sees as nothing more than an annoying bug. Pietro freezes for a second, his eyes wide, his heart races, and before he even realizes it, he shouts out for someone, anyone, to come help. Ulysses steps up and sends out a blast of fire. Pietro's body gets hit by the flames, and he can't help but let out a yell. The fire tears through him, and it's clear the pain is almost too much to handle. Ulysses totally agrees with the young lord, not holding back at all. He sees it as his job to deal with anyone who tries to disrespect the imperial family or the empire, almost like it's his personal mission to take care of anyone causing trouble. Marquis Ulysses wrapped things up, looking at Dale with clear expectations. He seemed to believe Dale had a lot of potential and was quietly rooting for him to do well moving forward. Once everything settled, the Emperor's men headed out, and the castle felt calm again. Things went back to normal at Duke Saxon's place, like nothing had ever happened. Later that morning, Eve, who works as the maid, goes to wake up Dale. He's still half asleep, trying to shake off the last bit of sleepiness as she gets him up for the day. He nods at her, showing he's grateful, but then catches how she seems unsure, like there's something on her mind she isn't saying. Eve gives a small, awkward nod and quietly thanks him. You can tell she's kind of nervous, but also proud to be helping out. He can't help but think about why she paused before saying anything. Even after spending so long in this world, stuff like people showing him respect still catches him off guard. He knows he'll have to get used to it eventually. He thanked Eve one more time. As the oldest son in the Saxon family, he knew how much responsibility came with his name. He made up his mind to do whatever it took to take down the empire. Later on, the Duke called his son Dale into his office. He let Dale know he was impressed by how smart he was. Lately, he's been acting weird. The other guy notices and wants to know what's up. Dale caught him off guard by bringing up something he hadn't really thought about before. What if the hero from another world hadn't died fighting the sword god lord? The hero's next move was supposed to be the Duchy of Saxon. When the Duke found out, he just froze. He hadn't seen that coming at all. The Duke raises an eyebrow, surprised at how confident the guy sounds. He wants to know where all that certainty is coming from. Dale pauses for a moment, remembering something from his past life. Back then, he'd heard rumors about the Empire planning something shady against House Saxon. That thought sticks with him, making him second-guess his next move. He quickly rethinks his answer and tells his dad that the Empire got rid of the hero's power because they were scared the hunting dog might end up turning against them. Back then, even after the hero took down the Demon King, the Empire couldn't fully wipe out the darkness that lingered in those lands. Instead, the Empire came up with a strange plan and told the Saxons to take those lands back and make them part of the Empire. That meant the Saxons had to use up their own supplies and energy for this job, and after all that work, the Empire just handed those lands over to the Duke as his own property. Dale thinks about it and realizes something important. As long as there's still darkness in that place, the energy or strength they're losing will keep slipping away. It won't stop until the darkness is finally gone for good. People from the Empire, and even folks living outside the northern lands, always talk about them behind their backs. They get labeled as the Clan of Darkness, and everyone seems quick to judge without really knowing anything about them. Because of this, the Empire, after getting rid of the hero, was now turning its attention to the Saxons. They saw them as a threat from inside and weren't about to let anyone mess with their control. The Empire was getting ready to take action, making sure nothing and no one would stand in their way. The Duke stared at his son, surprised that Dale already seemed to know what had happened to the hero. Dale just shrugged and said it was his own theory, something he pieced together after spending time in the archives. None of it really made sense to him, so he tried to connect the dots himself. Everyone heard the story. The hero lost his life fighting hard against the sword god, Lord Battle. People said he died with honor, right there in the middle of the fight. Dale figures his dad is probably surprised that he managed to uncover the truth just from reading some books, especially since hardly anyone else knows about it. Dale kept thinking things over, looking at all the facts he had. He figured that if he was right, the Empire's idea of justice was just a cover-up. To him, it looked like the Empire used its power to push around weaker countries and take whatever it wanted, all while pretending it was playing fair. The Duke glanced at his son and couldn't help but notice how grown-up he seemed for his age. It was almost like the kid saw things most people missed, and the Duke found himself wondering just how much his son understood about the world. Dale looked over, waiting for the guy's take on what House Saxon should do next. He didn't hold back. He just said it straight. House Saxon and the Empire? No way they could ever really be on the same side. The Duke hears that they have to take down the whole Empire. He just stands there, stunned by what he's hearing, not really sure how to react. He calls out to him, his tone more serious than usual. He looks at him, trying to figure out if he really gets what he just said. The moment feels heavy, like everyone's waiting for his answer. Dale makes sure everyone knows he isn't talking about starting a rebellion right now. He starts talking about what things might be like in 10 years. The Duke hears this and can't help but think about it. 10 years? That sounds like a long time, and the idea sticks with him. Dale kept talking to his dad, making sure he understood that even now, there were still groups all over the continent who wanted to break free and do their own thing. Some lords, including Duke Saxon, are worried the Empire might come after them next. How things aren't getting any better. The economy keeps getting worse, bandits are popping up everywhere, and the damage from the war just keeps piling up, even though the whole continent is supposed to be united now. He tells them they need to get stronger over the next 10 years if they want to keep their homes safe from the Empire. Until the right moment comes, they have to focus on training and getting ready for whatever is coming their way. He says they can pull this off if they back up the resistance groups scattered across different areas. Dale goes on, laying out everything he's thought of to take down the Empire. He keeps talking, going over everything as the daylight fades and the sky starts to turn orange. When he's finally done, he looks at his dad, wanting to know what he thinks. Duke laughs, clearly proud of his son. He looks at the boy, thinking about just how talented he is, like there's no real way to measure it. He realizes that Dale can spot things way off in the distance that he just can't make out. Dale's dad looked at him with real pride. From now on, he wasn't just going to see Dale as his oldest kid or a little 10-year-old. Things were changing between them. Even though he wasn't the head yet, everyone started giving him the respect that came with the title. Dale could tell people were taking him seriously, and honestly, it got to him a little. He didn't show it, but hearing that kind of thing made him feel something. The Duke gives a nod, showing he's actually taking Dale seriously now, treating him as an equal. Dale can't help but notice that this is the kind of respect he's been hoping for all along. The Duke explained that his son now had the responsibility to take charge of House Saxon. He wanted his son to be honest and clear about the choice he was about to make for their family. Dale grinned at his dad, kind of nudging him to remember that promise about treating each other like equals. After thinking it over, he asks if he can join the tower trial in Necropolis. The Duke doesn't see this coming at all and needs a moment to process what he just heard. The story explains that the tower trial is basically a ranking game. Mages take on the tower's guardians, and where they end up in the ranking decides their place in the magic tower's pecking order. Anyone who beats the toughest guardians can become an elder of the tower, but only one person gets to the very top, and that person is known as the Tower Master. The Duke looked at his son's request and couldn't help but think about how risky the tower trial really was. He remembered how many people never made it back and knew his son could be in real danger. The place wasn't just tough, it was the kind of place where people could disappear for good. Despite this, the Duke could see his son was determined, but he still felt the weight of all the things that could go wrong. He points out that Dale isn't ready yet, since Dale still hasn't finished the third circle. Dale, though, just stays chill and sure of himself, saying he'll get to the third circle soon enough. The Duke explains that most people don't reach the third circle until they're well into their 20s. Even for someone like Dale, who's already nailed the second one, getting to the next level is still really tough. Dale stands his ground, letting his dad know that this choice isn't just about him. He makes it clear it matters for his dad and their family too. He thinks that if he can get through this trial and show what he's made of, it'll make his dad, the Duke, look even better. Having a son who can handle tough situations would only make his father's position stronger. Now, people would start to see him as someone reliable, not just some guy everyone talks about online. The Duke wanted to know if this is why Dale wanted to go through with the trial. Dale nodded, making it clear that was exactly the reason. The Duke gave a small smile, letting Dale know he understood and that the decision was up to him now. Dale felt a rush of relief and excitement, determined to show his father he could handle it. A few days passed. The Duke and Dale showed up at Necropolis, the city of the dead. The huge door swung open, and everyone inside stood up straighter when the Black Duke walked in. People showed him a lot of respect, making it clear he was someone important. Dale lets out a big yawn, realizing he might have pushed himself too hard again. He's completely worn out, barely able to keep his eyes open. Everyone in Necropolis saw Duke Saxon and Lord Dale show up. Some people start to wonder if the rumors about Dale being some kind of magical genius are actually true. Someone else notices how unhappy Dale looks and tries to reassure him, telling him not to second-guess himself. People in the crowd kept whispering to each other. Someone joked around, saying he heard Dale's sword skills were supposed to be as good as the Duke's knights, but he clearly didn't buy it and thought it was pretty lame. Felix had always been the best at the academy, and everyone knew it. As the test started, he made it clear that he was the one who should come out on top. He looked over at Dale, the kid from the duchy, and couldn't help but think Dale looked too soft for this kind of challenge. Felix was sure the win belonged to him. Dale showed up at the tower with his dad. Right as they got there, a woman named Iris stepped forward. She nodded respectfully to the Duke, who was in charge of the place. The Duke walked up to Iris, giving her a proper welcome. Iris responded by pledging her loyalty to Lord Dale. As things unfolded, everyone learned that Iris held a pretty important position. She was one of the elders at the tower and also worked as the Secretary General, making sure everything ran smoothly whenever the Black Duke was away. The Duke let his son know that Iris would be helping him out with the test. The son didn't argue, he just nodded, taking it in stride. He let her know he was counting on her, and she nodded like it was no big deal. Then she turned and motioned for him to come along, leading the way without missing a beat. Iris walked ahead, showing Dale into a massive hall. As they entered, she let him know that he wasn't alone. There would be 59 other academy graduates taking the test with him. Dale stands at the edge of the hall, checking out all the other guys getting ready to compete. Iris steps forward and greets everyone. She lets them know her name and that she's the Secretary General. She starts telling everyone about the first test on the Black Magic Tower's first floor. While she's talking, she points out the life point pendants that everyone's wearing, making sure they know to check them. She lets everyone know the test is like a battle royale, where they have to take life points from each other. Each person gets a pendant that gives them a bit of shield magic for protection and holds their 1 life point. Whenever a contestant manages to land a solid hit on someone else by using one of the corpses lying around, the other guy's pendant breaks. Right after that, a shield pops up and the person is instantly out of the game. Whoever pulls off a successful attack scores an extra point. Once someone gathers 3 points, they're good to move on to the next floor. Artifacts aren't allowed at all, and anyone caught using them gets kicked out right away. Dale looks over the rules and figures they're set up to weed out anyone who isn't serious pretty fast. All around Dale, the other contestants huddled together, glancing his way with uneasy looks. They kept their voices low, sharing rumors and stories about him. Some of them seemed nervous, almost like they believed he wasn't quite like everyone else. Just the mention of his name made people uneasy, like he was someone to watch out for. Everyone was surprised to see someone so young make it all the way to the 3rd circle. While the others were still trying to figure out how he did it, Felix had another idea. He thought it'd be smarter if they all worked together to take down the monster before anything else. Someone couldn't help but question if going after the young lord was really safe. Felix doesn't seem bothered by the worry. He just acts like everyone's on the same level once the test starts. Dale catches what Felix says. He's impressed by how confident they sound, but in his head he's already sizing them up, wondering if they can really back it up or if it's just talk. Iris lets everyone know that the test is about to begin. The contestants got right to work, bringing the corpses back as undead soldiers. Felix looks over and sees that Dale is just standing there, not doing anything. Without wasting time, Felix points his undead soldier right at Dale. The soldier charges forward and brings its sword down, aiming straight for him. Felix freezes when he spots Dale's undead soldier stepping in and stopping the attack. He didn't expect that at all, and it throws him off for a second. The attacker just stands there, caught off guard when he notices Dale using water magic. His soldier doesn't move a muscle, totally frozen by what he's seeing. He starts to think about whether he might have dual affinity, the power to handle 2 kinds of magic at once, especially as he watches his soldier go after the undead one. The contestant's face turns red with frustration as he watches his undead soldier break apart the moment it collides with his opponent's. Another undead soldier lunged at one of Dale's men, but the blow didn't land. An icy shield blocked the attack, holding strong. Dale watched, unfazed, knowing his magic had his teammate covered. Felix's face turned red as he started shouting, pointing straight at the other guy. He was mad, saying the other dude was cheating by using water magic when he wasn't supposed to. Felix explained the rules, pointing out that only dark magic was allowed. Stuff like raising the undead or making them stronger. Dale coolly heard him and wanted to double check if that was really true. He looks over at Iris, who's been watching quietly, and wants to know if there's actually a rule that says only dark magic can make the undead stronger. Iris doesn't say anything, just keeps quiet. Dale looks around and figures that, since nobody called off the test, he must have done nothing wrong. Meanwhile, Felix clenches his fists and scowls, clearly annoyed by how things turned out. Felix, who was known as the top student, lost his cool and started shouting at the others. He told them to hold off Dale's undead soldier, which was now powered up with ice, so they could focus on going after Dale himself. He stands his ground, pointing out that he's just one guy. If they really wanted to, they could easily take him down just by teaming up. Dale remembers that using artifacts isn't allowed. He chooses to take on the challenge alone. He bolts forward, heading straight for the undead that's coming at him. He slips past every swing, moving quick and light on his feet. The guys try to catch him, but he's always just out of reach, weaving through the chaos like he's done this 100 times before. He grabs a sword from one of the undead soldiers. Then, using black magic, he lands a heavy punch on it. He takes out another undead without breaking a sweat. One of the guys in the competition just stares, totally thrown off by how fast his undead soldier got taken out. He tries to figure out how it happened so easily. Meanwhile, Felix can tell right away that Dale's sword isn't normal at all. Iris watched as Dale messed around with the bones, making some changes that made the sword look a lot tougher than before. It was pretty clear Dale knew what he was doing. He'd somehow made the weapon way more solid, like it could take a beating now. Iris took it all in, quietly keeping track of what Dale was up to. Dale keeps swinging, not letting up for a second. Out of nowhere, another undead soldier comes at him, forcing Dale to stay on his toes. He jumps up and swings his sword down at the undead soldier. Felix stood there stunned. His entire crew was gone, just like that. Felix feels a chill run down his spine as he watches the mage handle the sword like a pro. He can't help but question if it even makes sense for someone who uses magic to be this good at fighting up close. The thought messes with his head, making everything feel way more intense than before. Dale steps forward, closing in on Felix, who's already down and looking desperate. Felix is clearly scared, hoping Dale will let him off the hook. Dale didn't let up, teasing him about the whole situation. He pointed out the protective pendant, making it clear that nothing too serious was going to happen because of it. He brings his sword down, aiming straight for Felix's head. Felix can't hold out any longer. He goes down, his pendant shattering on the ground. Now, everyone looks at him differently, almost like he's not even human anymore. Iris got up and let everyone know how things turned out. She said Lord Dale was the only one who made it through the test. He ended up with 60 life points. Basically, he took took all the points from the other competitors. Dale looked around, taking it all in. This place felt like the start of something big for him. He figured this was where things would really kick off, and he hoped people would notice what he could do. The story moves up to the second floor of the tower. This part of the trial means facing off against the Guardian, which turns out to be a huge flesh golem. In his head, he remembered how the survivors from the first floor usually teamed up to take down the Guardian together. But this time, he'd taken out everyone else, so he was on his own. Things were different on this floor too. Now, every kind of magic was fair game. Even though the rule about no artifacts is still in place, he figures what he has will do just fine. He sees this as his chance to build the third circle and find out what he's really capable of. The golem swung at Dale, but Dale saw it coming and quickly moved out of the way. He charges forward and hits the golem's arm, leaving a deep scratch. The golem freezes, clearly not expecting that kind of move. He grinned and started weaving his hands, getting ready to use a spell called Accelerated Decay. Iris watches closely as the young lord starts using magic. She can tell right away that what he's doing isn't just some regular spell. There's something different about it, something that stands out from what she's seen before. The golem's body starts breaking down as the magic eats away at it. Watching this, Iris can't help but think about Dale's choice. He went for corrupting the golem instead of just smashing it apart. She tries to figure out what's going on in his head. Dale thought about the decay magic he just used on the golem. It reminded him of his old life, where fighting monsters wasn't just about guns. People had to use all sorts of dangerous stuff, like biochemical weapons, to stand a chance. He wipes blood off his face and thinks about the people watching, like Iris. He can't tell if they get it, that the terrifying stuff from wars and chemicals is showing up now as black magic. That day, Dale finished the trial and made it all the way to the 10th floor, setting a new record. After that, he got 4 days off to rest before he had to take on the 11th floor. While everyone was still trying to process what happened on the first floor, where Dale had caused chaos like never before, the organizers decided to do something unusual. They gave the other 59 contestants another shot with a retest, hoping it would help them bounce back from the disaster. That night, after everything at the trial wrapped up, Dale found himself alone by a fountain. Teacher Sabia noticed him and gave him some props for how well he did in the trial. He felt pretty grateful and knew he wouldn't have pulled it off without the stuff she'd shown him before. He catches her off guard when he suddenly asks if she wants to hang out with him, just the two of them, like a real date. He lets Sabia know there's a festival happening in the city. Sabia thinks about it for a second, then decides to check it out with him. She figures he's probably too young to really get what a date is all about, but on his end, he just grins to himself, thinking this must be what people mean when they talk about having a dark heart. The guys reach the Necropolis City Festival, where the place is buzzing with celebrations and fireworks lighting up the sky. Sabia looked over at Dale, thinking he must be wiped out after everything they just went through. But Dale just shook his head, acting like he had plenty of energy left. He mentions he's got a couple of days to chill before the next trial comes up. Things get quiet between them. Dale looks up at the sky and points out how nice the moon looks tonight. She nods in agreement. Dale's mind starts to wander, and he finds himself struggling to come up with something else to say. Whenever he was quiet around Sabia, things never got weird. Maybe it was because she always had this steady trust in him, like she knew he'd never let her down. He wanted to get to know her better. Thinking back to the last few days, he remembered finally making it to the third circle. That moment stuck with him. He finally saw what Sabia was always going on about, the way everything looked inside your own head. To get to the third circle, he had to push himself past what the second circle could handle, forcing out more mana than it was built for. This process, called mana overflow, wasn't easy, but it was the only way forward. While he was busy with what he was doing, everything around him changed out of nowhere. He looked around, totally confused, not sure how he ended up in this weird spot. Sabia's voice echoed in his head, reminding him that he couldn't hide what was going on inside his mind. That's when it hit him. He was stuck inside his own thoughts, in a place that felt like some kind of mental world where everything was about understanding himself. He starts to see that his life was always kind of empty, like there was just nothing there. In all that emptiness, Teacher Sabia was the only person who ever noticed him and tried to help. Back at the festival, Dale watches Sabia and starts to realize something. Maybe this is the reason he wants that teacher who made everything feel brighter. Out of nowhere, he just blurts out that he loves her. Sabia freezes, caught off guard, and tries to process what she just heard. He says it again, making sure his words are clear this time. Sabia gives him a soft smile and pulls him into a hug. She wants him to know she gets where he's coming from, and it's clear she cares about him too. He felt grateful and realized that getting a second shot at life actually had some real upsides. A few days later, when the 11th floor trial finally comes around, Dale still feels like nothing has really changed between him and Sabia since he told her how he felt. He figured she just thought it was a kid's crush, nothing serious. With that in mind, he pushed everything aside and got ready for whatever challenge was coming next. Iris lays out the details for the next challenge. This time, everyone has to face off in a one-on-one magic duel. Whoever comes out on top gets to move up to the 12th floor. Dale faces the guy across from him who calls himself Elbert Rosenheim. Elbert's got this serious vibe, and everyone seems to know he's a third circle master, which means he's no pushover. Dale sizes him up, trying to figure out what he's up against. The air feels tense, like everyone's holding their breath to see what'll happen next. He lets Dale know he's not going to take it easy just because Dale's a kid. Dale remembers that this 11th floor trial is different from the others. He goes over what he knows in his head, thinking about what makes this challenge tougher than before. Now that everyone could use all their magic and the rules about artifacts were gone, the life point pendant wasn't enough to keep the contestants completely safe anymore. Albert eyed Dale, knowing the rules were gone now. He felt ready to let loose and show Dale just how much stronger he really was. Albert believed Dale would finally see the difference between them once he went all out. He reminds him to keep his guard up during the duel. The guy let Dale know he wasn't like those rookie academy grads Dale had faced before. He was sure that this was where the young lord's confidence would hit a wall. He fires off a bunch of dark arrows made from magic, aiming them straight at Dale. He dares the other guy to stop his next move. He keeps making fun of Dale, acting like Dale's confidence doesn't mean anything. Without waiting, he throws out another round of attacks, trying to push Dale even harder. Dale moves quick, weaving out of the way as attacks come at him. He stays light on his feet, never letting anything touch him. Every move looks smooth, like he's done this 100 times before. Dale watches Albert and can't help but think something's off. Albert fired off a spell before the duel was even supposed to begin, and Dale's pretty sure that's not how things are supposed to go. He stands there, eyebrows furrowed, wondering if Albert just broke the rules right in front of everyone. Nobody stepped in to break up the fight. Everyone just watched, wanting to see what he could actually do. He started to realize that this place only cared about what people could prove, like everything depended on skill and strength. He grits his teeth at the mages, keeping it to himself. Meanwhile, Albert spots his chance and moves in. Albert raised his voice, commanding his creatures to get up and follow his lead forever. As he did, the dark, dangerous monsters around him started to come alive, ready to do whatever he wanted. Dale watches the whole thing with a bored look, barely interested. He can't help but feel secondhand embarrassment just seeing it all play out. In his head, he wonders where his opponent even picked up such a weird chant. Still, he has to admit, Albert is definitely better than the newbies. Dale keeps moving fast, staying just ahead of the undead that Albert keeps bringing out. Every time a new one shows up, Dale is already looking for the next way to slip past, not letting any of them get too close. Albert gets pretty annoyed and stares him down, wanting to know just how long he plans on avoiding things. He realized running wasn't going to help him win, so he wondered if this was really all he could do. Not wanting to waste any more time, he signaled one of his undead soldiers to blow itself up. He stands there, cool and confident, letting everyone know he's already won. All of a sudden, Albert notices Dale isn't around anymore. He tries to remember when Dale slipped away and starts looking around, trying to figure out where his friend could have gone. Dale suddenly shows up behind Albert, catching him off guard. Albert doesn't really get what's happening at first. Dale actually gives Albert some credit for pulling off a sneaky move, but then he activates his spectral form from the Cloak of Shadow, ready to take things up a notch. He lets his opponent know that winning isn't going to be easy. At the same time, Dale's shadow creatures start making a low noise, showing how hungry they are. They're eager and almost impatient, looking at Albert like he might be their next meal. He gives them a quick smile, letting them go first, but he reminds them not to pile too much food on their plates. Shadows rushed at Albert, and pain shot through him as he tried to fight them off. He couldn't hold back a yell, the sound echoing as the dark shapes closed in tighter. Dale noticed the shadows acting kind of restless, like they hadn't eaten in a while. Meanwhile, Albert looked pretty desperate, hoping something would save him. Dale signals for the shadows to back off. Albert hits the ground and doesn't get back up. Iris steps in and points to Dale, making it clear he's won the first round. Dale looks around, waiting to see who's up next for the second round. But the guy who's supposed to go just steps back and gives up, saying he'd rather stay safe than fight. With that, everyone starts getting ready for the third round. From then until the last match, Dale moved forward without having to fight, since his opponents didn't show up. There was only one match where he actually had to step into the ring. After putting in the work, Dale got the hang of his 3 magic circles. He started taking down each floor guardian, one after another. When he finally made it to the 20th floor, someone showed up who could actually challenge him. Everyone finally realized that the guardian was actually the headless knight. The knight standing there wasn't like any the others had seen before. He was put together by one of the Black Tower elders, so he was on a whole different level compared to the ones who showed up earlier. Just looking at him, it was clear nobody from before could even come close to matching him. Some people watching started to wonder if the young lord had finally hit his limit. Dale just smiled to himself, finding it almost funny how everyone expected things to go in a straight line. For him, having everything play out exactly as planned sounded kind of lame. Dale squares up against the headless knight, both of them ready to throw down. The air gets tense as they face off, and everyone watching knows this fight is about to get intense. Dale keeps his guard up, eyeing the knight and waiting for the first move. The clash is about to start, and nobody's sure how it'll end. Everyone in the crowd stares, eyes wide, trying to figure out what's going on. Nobody expected to see the headless knight kneeling right in front of Dale. The whole group just stared, not really sure what to think. Some guys tried to figure out if it was a trick, while others just stood there, barely blinking. Dale didn't move, and it felt like time kind of stopped for a second as everyone took in what was happening. Dale doesn't hold back. He just tells the guy to end it himself. The headless knight suddenly turns its sword on itself and drops to the ground, done for. Watching this, Dale just stands there, kind of surprised at how far the knight was willing to go. It gave up everything, even its job as a guardian, just out of loyalty. Dale can't help but think that's pretty wild. He starts to realize that maybe he pushed things a little more than he should have. Now, he's not so sure if that was the smartest move. Dale gets why everyone's staring. The knight wasn't supposed to turn on his creator, the Tower Elder, and side with him. That kind of thing just doesn't happen. Seeing the knight choose him means Dale's now on the same level as a Black Tower Elder, even though that wasn't really what he planned to show everyone. He figures he's done enough and it's time to head out. Turning toward the exit, he starts walking away. The people watching him seem a bit confused, probably wondering why he's leaving already. He knows he could probably keep going, but there's a point he just can't go past. Dale figures out that if he keeps pushing himself and climbs even higher, he won't just leave the monsters behind. He'll turn into something nobody really understands. With that thought, his challenge finally comes to an end. Once Dale's trial finished, all the tower trials came to a close. When the Tower Master showed up with his son Dale, everyone in the Black Tower stood straight and gave a sharp military salute. Everyone in Saxon, from the powerful noble families to the youngest mages of the Black Tower, even the respected elders, all showed their respect to the Duke and his son. Because Dale kept crushing it, people all over the northern region started coming together. Up in the Duchy of Saxon, part of the Northern Empire, a bunch of knights were going at it, training hard and showing off their skills. All around the field, they kept looking over at young Lord Dale, obviously proud to have someone like him leading them. Some of the knights even started cheering, pumped up just by his presence. After House Saxon made it through the tower trial without any trouble, everyone felt a wave of relief. Dale got word from his dad, the Duke, telling him he had to go lead a fight against a horde of orcs. Most kids at 10 are just worried about finishing their homework or beating the next level in their favorite game. But here he was, carrying a responsibility most adults would find overwhelming. Even with all that pressure on his shoulders, everyone around him trusted him to lead. Not one person questioned if he was up for it. Dale, who was next in line for the Black Duke's title, slowly started bringing the whole northern region together under his lead. Later on, Dale goes to his dad to give him the news. He tells him that they took down 45 orcs. The Duke wanted to know how everyone was doing after what happened that night. Dale let him know that 3 guys got off with just some minor injuries, and luckily, no one else got hurt. The Duke wondered if magic had been used for protection, but Dale shook his head. He made it clear that it was the swordsman from House Saxon who deserved all the credit, not some hidden spell. The Duke looked pleased as he checked out Dale's progress. Sir Helmet pointed out to the Duke that Dale was already comfortable leading a whole squad of knights, even though he was still young. Dale didn't try to show off, he just gave Sir Helmet the credit, letting everyone know he'd learned most of what he knew from him. Sir Helmet gives Dale some recognition, noticing that Dale picked up sword skills, battle plans, and all the tricks of war straight from him. At this pace, it looks like Dale will be running his own territory in the next domain war pretty soon. Dale grinned to himself as he thought about a domain war. He was always up for whatever new challenge came his way. Dale and Charlotte were in the middle of a sparring match. Charlotte moved in fast, raising her voice as she charged straight at Dale. The two of them go back and forth, trading quick punches and kicks. Neither one is backing down, and the fight is picking up speed. Every hit lands faster than the last, making it tough to see who's got the upper hand. The fight between them keeps going, both sides pushing hard and not backing down. Dale wrapped up the training session and noticed that Charlotte was getting a bit better than before. Charlotte looked pretty annoyed. It was like she couldn't believe he was acting so casual, like none of this really mattered to him. Meanwhile, he started to wonder if maybe he'd pushed things too far with his teasing. He thinks back to how she pointed out his progress. He's a 3rd circle mage now, and he actually made it past the 20th floor of the tower trial. Ever since then, all anyone talked about was how great young Lord Dale was. The compliments just kept coming, one after another, like people couldn't help themselves. She wondered if he ever got tired of it, but Dale just brushed it off, not letting any of it get to him, and tried to ease her concerns. He tried to boost her confidence, thinking she'd get stronger with time. Watching Charlotte, he realized that for someone who was just 10, she already had skills that stood out. Charlotte's face twists in frustration. She can't stand being talked down to, especially by him. It's like he's forgotten they're both just kids, and she's not about to let him act like he's better. The air between them gets tense as Charlotte fires back, making it clear she's not going to let things slide. Even though they both try to act tough, it's obvious neither of them is really grown up yet. He smiles at her, acting like he's got things figured out. Even though he looks young, there's this confidence in the way he carries himself, like he's been through stuff before. Deep down, he's thinking about all the memories and experiences from his past life, which makes him feel way older than he looks. Later on, Sir Helmet starts teaching Dale something new. Today, he lets him know that they're going to learn the hammer and anvil move. He points out how the whole plan depends on the cavalry smashing to the side of the enemy and circling them, while the infantry holds back the other cavalry from fighting back. That's the main thing that makes the strategy work. The tactic gets its name from how blacksmiths hit metal on an anvil with a hammer. Dale figures out that this move works only because the black cavalry are around. He realizes that, no matter where you are, war pretty much stays the same. Helmet wanted to know how Charlotte's training was going, so he checked in and waited to hear about her progress. Dale thinks her training is pretty impressive, but he knows his own is on a whole different level. He tells her that she's finally got the basics of swordsmanship down. Soon, she'll start working on aura moves and learn the way the Saxon family fights with a sword. But then he brings up something that's bothering him. Dale cuts in before he can finish, already guessing that it has to do with whether Charlotte's fighting style actually matches what their group usually does with swords. The story points out that while mages use their circles to turn mana into magic, knights have their own way of handling mana. They can work on it with a lot of focus and self-control, turning that power into something called aura, which they keep inside themselves. Just like mages build towers to teach their magic, knights group together in orders so they can pass down their sword skills to the next generation. The Black Cavalry is there too. He was part of the Knight Raven Order, the group from the Northern Saxon family. Everyone knew their style was all about raw strength, hitting hard and never holding back. Charlotte's way of fighting is all about being fast and quick on her feet. But right now, her skills aren't quite enough. If she keeps going like this, she might just scrape into the 7 swords, but it'll be tough. No matter how hard she tries, making it to the top spot, the first sword, just isn't in the cards for her. Her dad used to have that job. People called him the Sword of Floors. Sir Helmet kept talking, looking a little sad as he remembered how the Sword of Floors style vanished after the Night Kingdom fell. Dale starts thinking about whether anyone else still uses this fighting style. While others might have forgotten it, he's been putting in the work, sticking to tough training routines and fighting monsters to make a name for himself. It was finally time to see if all that training paid off. The Duke got a message and just stood there, caught off guard by the news. The messenger came back with some big news. Baron Volker from next door was saying the Duke's copper mine belonged to him now. He wasn't just talking either, he'd sent an official request for a domain war. Dale figures that even though the rules in this world aren't always clear, it's still pretty risky for a low-level noble like a baron to mess with someone as powerful as a duke. The messenger goes on to say that if the duke doesn't give up the mine and decides to go to war instead, things are going to get serious. Archduke Brandenburg backed the baron's claim, but only because he wanted a cut of the copper mine's profits. But that's not the end of it. Brandenburg's planning to send his St. Magdalena order to back up the baron. Dale gets it right away. He knows Brandenburg still remembers what happened with his dad and hasn't let it go. Now, seeing what's going on, Dale realizes this is Brandenburg's way of getting back at him. Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole, spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork, and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Web2 Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.